Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. I, of course, am Mr. Warren Hayes, and you are about to embark on a journey that is going to take you through the ups and downs of the past week in professional wrestling, thanks to me and my observations and pithy analyses as we break down news and events and stuff happening. And we're all doing it right here on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes or on your favorite podcast application, wherever you find the Mr. Warren Hayes Show, and indulge in it. If it's your first time here, thank you very much for joining me. Consider subscribing on YouTube, or adding me to your podcast list and your usual rotation anywhere else. That would be appreciated. A like on the video would be great as well on YouTube, or a 5-star review on Apple Podcast, or a 5-star rating on Spotify. Just just always to get those little nudges, those little helping hands to move forward here. It's been an interesting week. It's been an interesting week on the Mr. Warren Hayes Show Discord, where we continue the discussions that we start here and so much more. The link is in the description. We'd love to have you there. But yeah, it's been a very interesting week, and we're going over it tonight. I'm going to be, of course, giving you my WWE Bad Blood review, which has already been available for members of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show channel over on YouTube. And just in case you didn't already know, well, now you know. And if you're like, damn, I would have liked to hear that beforehand. Yeah, like, this has been available for members like since Sunday. Like, what are you doing? So if you want to get in early on that kind of stuff and other things as well, be sure to hit the join button here on YouTube and come along and join up. But let's focus on tonight, right, Warren, instead of doing the sales pitch, which you're not really good at, let's be honest. The WWE Bad Blood review. That's coming up in a couple of minutes. We're also going to be previewing AEW WrestleDream, which is happening this weekend. New Japan Pro Wrestling's King of Pro Wrestling show, which is also happening this upcoming weekend. Contract news and health updates like we usually do. But to begin with, we're going to be talking about the AEW deal, and I am joined because it's already been recorded. I am joined to talk about the deal, give some thoughts, give some extra insight with, I'm joined by Jesse Collings of the Gentleman's Wrestling Podcast, who is going to break stuff down alongside with me. It's a good little talk we had, and that's where we're going to go. That's what we're going to start with. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here. Let's get right to it. And we are going to start off the podcast today talking about the big AEW media deal that just happened a couple of days ago, last week actually. There's a lot of great news for AEW, possibly even some great news for fans in here. Lots to unpack, and I just felt really uncomfortable doing it all by myself. No, it's not that I felt uncomfortable. I actually thought it was a great opportunity to have Jesse Collings back on the podcast. Sometimes you just need an excuse. Jesse's a busy guy, he does, he has his own shoot job. He does the Gentleman's Wrestling Podcast. He does some of the most sought after writings over there at voicesofwrestling.com. So, you need a good excuse for him to make some time for you. So this is where I decided to pull it off. How you doing, Jesse?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be back on the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. I appreciate the invite back on to the show after I haven't run afoul of you yet, which is good.
No, of course not. No, au contraire. Au contraire. We're always glad to have you. You're a smart guy and a fun guest, and I couldn't think of anyone better other than, let's say, David Zaslav to have on to talk about the AEW deal. And then again, it probably wouldn't be as it'd probably be a little tainted as far as his analysis would go. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, actually, they mentioned David Zaslav's actually here. Let me just go in. Hey, David, you can come in now.
Of course, he hangs out.
Wouldn't that be something? He just shows up.
And he's got a spritzer in his hands. Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, like, yeah. Pull out another headset. Just plug him in.
That would be a shocker. But listen, I'm thrilled you're here. I
book him, but it's not for my own show. It's for a guest appearance on your show.
Yeah, for surprise appearances, right? It doesn't but that's the humility you have, right? That's how humble you are. You keep that kind of stuff for other people. You don't do that for yourself.
I don't like attention. Like, I don't know. I don't like people saying I did an amazing job. I know that by saying that sounds conceited, but I find that like praise like that to be awkward. I don't know if a lot of people I feel like are like that though.
Yeah, I don't have much of an issue dishing out, praise or saying, "Hey, great
Oh,
job," or "You're
I'm like
fantastic."
full of
But
yeah.
but receiving it all, like, I think I understand you. It makes me feel a little awkward too. You're like, "Oh, gee, thanks," but thank you. It's like, thank you for.
Yeah, like
I send it back immediately,
I,
kind of thing.
I play a lot of pickup basketball, and like I love if someone makes a shot, like good shot, or like someone does like good things, like I'm clear compliment guy. But if like I make a shot, or like maybe I make a couple shots, I get hot, I make a couple shots, help my team win, and everyone's like, "Oh, great job, Jesse!" Like I don't like that. I'm like, "Oh, that's okay. You guys don't have to mention that."
All right.
It's probably some like deep psychological reason why I'm like that.
But I wonder if Tony Khan is privy to you know.
He's Tony Khan is not like that.
I don't think so. I think
that man likes credit and he likes praise.
Exactly. I think he's okay with this, and he probably got probably quite a bit of praise for this deal here, Jesse. Let's go just with the overarching details, just to make sure everyone here is in context, and I'll get your thoughts out the gate. After which, 3-year deal AEW has signed with a Warner Bros. Discovery, fourth year option that WBD has. Many numbers have been circulating as far as what we're speculating as to how much per year they got, because WBD and AEW did not reveal the financial details, but we believe, at least, I listened a bit to Brandon earlier today. We're recording this on a Sunday, so I listened to WrestleNomics earlier today. Read Dave's analysis in the Observer. Let's say 550 million for the duration, broken down to, and this is how Dave Meltzer has broken it down: 180 million in 2025, 185 million in 2026, and 190 million in 2027. The option to extend the deal in 2028 is at a higher, but of course unspecified value. This is significantly above a lot of expectations that people had. Jesse, what were your initial thoughts when the news dropped?
Well, I think it's interesting because I think I would say the first 6 months of this year was spent, I think, with a lot of anxiety people had about what is the AEW TV deal, what's going to happen, are they going to get a big increase. It seemed like, for those people who were in the know and had studied it, that it seemed likely they would get a pretty sizable increase based on the ratings that they were doing, based on kind of what the going rate for that kind of product was going to be. But there was always this constant kind of anxiety about what it was going to be, if they were going to get a big increase, that kind of thing. And then, I don't know about you, Warren. I don't know. Maybe this is maybe July or August. It started to become pretty obvious that they had signed some sort of deal with Warner Bros. Discovery, or they were about to sign a deal.
There was something.
It just seemed like
something.
Yeah, there was enough rumblings from the reporters that are in the know about that stuff. You could just tell from Tony's attitude kind of shifted from, we're in the negotiation period, to more like, I can guarantee we're gonna be, on, TBS and TNT for a while. So I think before the deal really was formally announced on Wednesday, we had already been kind of living in a world where we knew not the exact details of the deal, but most of the deal. Like the figure didn't surprise me at all. It seemed about pretty much right in line with what I think the most in-depth experts thought about in terms of what the money figure would be. I think it surprised some people that were not maybe listening to the correct experts. But I think from what Dave Meltzer had speculated on, what Brandon Thurston had speculated on, this seemed to be right about where I think I expected it to be. Were you surprised by anything in terms of monetary value?
Well, I'll tell you what surprised me the most, and we can get into those details maybe moving forward. I was surprised that AEW is still hanging on to its pay-per-view rights. I think that's the most that's the most surprising element to me. I thought they were just going to do that Warner Brothers was just going to do a buyout, just buy the license, and then plop that on the service, and that'll be that. No, it still goes beyond
Similar
that.
to Peacock, WWE on
Exactly,
Peacock.
exactly. So that I got to tell you surprised me a little more. Let's add let's add those details just very quickly then. Let me see here. Yeah, starting in 2025, the pay-per-view events will be available on Max at a discounted price for those who are subscribed. So this is similar to the ESPN model that UFC has. Until initially though, events will continue to be available on traditional pay-per-view platforms and as well as on the usual digital distributors, ppv.com, YouTube, Triller, etc. There's also a change in the advertising and revenue sharing. Unlike previous deals, AEW will no longer share in advertising revenue with Warner Bros. Discovery, making a shift in how they've structured their financial relationship since the company's inception. So that's also very, very interesting as well.
Well, it's kind of a full circle moment. If you remember, the original deal was, you know, basically, AEW would get the ad revenue from it, essentially,
Right.
and they were getting very little upfront revenue
Mm-hmm.
from Warner Brothers. And then with they kind of ripped up that TV deal right before the pandemic, and they got a more traditional deal in the sense that they were splitting the ad revenue,
True.
and now, Warner Bros. Discovery has fully taken over the ad revenue, and that kind of speaks to the long-term viability of the product in the fact that Warner Bros. Discovery feels comfortable enough with selling the advertising product that that's something that they want in the deal. Is like, yeah, we want all that ad revenue for all those commercials. What kind of commercials do you see during Dynamite?
Well, I don't know because
Do you watch?
I get it in Canada, so you're gonna have to tell me.
Yeah, so you get the world feed. I've kind of thought about doing a study on like who is advertising for AEW, if that's something that we could see. Like, are these um, like big money? Like, are these Fortune 500 companies? Are these
Mm-hmm.
major advertising brands you would see advertising during like the NFL? Um, because we've talked about that. Like, if you watch I know if you watch WWE, like a lot of the advertisements are for like um unhealthy food items, is what I would say. Like, it's
Sure.
like Wingstop and Doritos and
And
Pizza Hut, and it's
saucy
like,
nugs from Wendy's. I heard about the saucy nugs from Wendy's.
and so I wondered if AW's is substantially different than that. I don't know. I feel like they're pretty much the same. We've seen some kind of personal advertisements and stuff like that. But um,
Maybe
I
we
would be
can.
interested in. Sorry. I think with the pay-per-views, to get back to pay-per-views,
Sure.
um, we don't know what the discounted rate is going to be or how big of a discounted rate that is going to be. I think one important thing to note is that, um, you know, Warner Bros. Discovery was used to get a portion of the pay-per-view revenue that AEW have because it ran BR Live, Bleacher Report Live,
Mm-hmm.
um, which was owned by WBD. So, um, when you bought your pay-per-view through there, which is how I bought most of the AEW pay-per-views, I bought them through BR Live. Uh,
Did you get to watch them?
WBD.
Were you able to watch them?
Yeah, I never. I think there was one. I forget which one. I think there was one in particular where it was kind of like touch and go if it was going to work, and then it worked
Okay.
like right before the show started. But
Okay.
other than that, I never had the kind of issues other people were having. But I mean, I believe that they were.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but Warner Bros. Discovery recently announced that they're sunsetting that. I believe it's done. You can no longer purchase a pay per view through BR Live. It's like a dead system because I'm pretty sure the only thing they ended up selling on it was AEW pay per views. So this is kind of an extension of that in the sense of they're going from getting a piece of pay per view revenue from BR Live to now tying it into people with Max subscriptions.
Sure.
Um, You have Max in Canada?
We do not.
You have something similar though,
We
right?
have a Canadian knockoff called Crave. Yes.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Yes.
right. I remember now that I was when I was in Canada, staying at an Airbnb in like April.
You
There was
can.
I remember now that I remember saying it. It's like I'm like, what is this? Some knockoff like
Well,
HBO Max?
it's pretty much it. It's basically HBO licensing, Warner Bros. Licensing off all of the Crave stuff to a Canadian company, because these are our cultural, this is our cultural like watchdog who establishes these rules, so that the nasty Americans can't come in too much with their overarching culture, trying to get a cultural win in Civilization 5. It's more, we try to do our own things. Yeah, we'll watch your shows, but we're gonna make money in the meantime doing it. Yeah,
Oh,
that's essentially it.
A Civ 5 reference?
Hell yeah.
We're
Hell yeah.
sending our, we want open borders. We want to send our musicians over there for a world tour to influence your culture.
There you go.
You're going to be wearing our blue jeans sooner than later.
Hey, we know what you're
I
up
did
to.
notice when I was in Canada that like one of the things I thought was like super interesting just from like a cost perspective was that like the same food items that you go to the supermarket, the same food items in Canada, um, have like different designs
Sure.
than they do in America. Like the box of Kraft macaroni and cheese has like a different logo
Well,
in
it's a different
Canada
name
than it does in the
entirely.
US.
It's a different name entirely. Like here,
Specifically Kraft. I just use that as an example, but I remember going to the supermarket and just seeing like the cereal boxes, like, yeah, you guys have Lucky Charms, but like the logo is different, and like, and it's like, why is the company designing two of these or more for every country? Like, why can't they just have the same design?
it'd be fun to look at the differences and sort of point out what's the cultural impetus of changing, the Lucky Charms leprechaun from the United States design to the Canadian design.
I
But
was at
look,
a
I don't understand.
sorry, I was no, no, no. I was gonna go super off topic talking about M&Ms and Smarties,
No,
but
go ahead. Talk about M&Ms and Smarties, please
I
do.
I was at a I was at
Because I was going to talk about craft
in
dinner some
April
more.
in April I was at I was at a I was at a Dairy Queen in Niagara Falls,
Sure.
Canada,
Yep.
and I was ordering, and he asked, what do you want in your Blizzard? And I said, oh, you guys got M&Ms, and the guy goes, but we don't have M&Ms. We have Smarties. They're extremely similar, and I knew that's what Smarties were, British candy,
Mm-hmm.
and I asked him, I was like, man, how many times per day do you have to say that? And
Pretty
he's like,
much.
so many times, because it's like super touristy. It's all these Americans coming over the border. They want their M&Ms and their Blizzard. They don't want their damn Smarties, which are of course a completely different candy, extremely different type of candy in America. Uh,
Oh,
we
there's
have our
something
own
called
candy called
Smarties in the
Smarties.
U.S. that are not Smarties like we know in the
Yeah, they're
Commonwealth.
like they're like these like almost like Pez like fruit flavored like discs.
Oh,
Um,
rocket candies. That's what I think. That's what we call them
uh,
here.
yeah, let me
They're like
actually
in a
look this
little
up.
they're like in a little see-through kind of. They're like in a, not a tube, but like in a roll, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, they're exact. Yeah, they're literally exactly that. Yes, you're 100% correct.
Okay. Yeah, we call them rockets.
What is going on here? So you guys have Smarties, but they're called Rocket Candies,
And we
and
have
we have
M&Ms, but they're called
something called
Smarties. But we also
Smarties.
have M&Ms
Well,
too.
M&Ms and Smarties, they're slightly different.
Yes,
There
and
are like,
I think there's significant differences between the two. The Smartie,
yeah, I do too.
the Smartie is flatter. It's closer to a UFO shape. The Smartie than the
Yeah,
M&M, which is a little more bulbous. I think it
yeah,
condenses the chocolate thing in there, and the candy shells are different as well. The Smartie is much thinner. Personally, like I'm an M&M guy over a Smarties guy. If you'd ask me for both, if I go to the Dairy Queen and the guy says, "Well, I don't have M&Ms," I don't have M&Ms. I have Smarties. Well, I'll be like, "Well, that's a compromise I'm making, sir, right
yeah.
now."
I dumped those Smarties right into my Blizzard. By the way, I was not picky about that. But these Smarties and Rocket Candies, those are the exact same candies. Like I'm looking at them. They're literally, it's even the same logo and design. They literally just replace Smarties with Rocket Candies.
Yeah. Oh, there
It's
you go.
very odd. Smarties are also an awful candy, but Anyway, let's go back to this WBD TV deal.
Because we were talking about in Canada, for some, I don't remember where we were at.
I asked what advertisements you get in Canada.
Oh, yeah. Well, like, I don't know how much it depends on, because it's TSN2 in Canada, right? So it's not the on which AEW is broadcast. So it's not even like, the main channel. It's not like TSN proper. It's the secondary channel. I kind of feel like the ad spaces that are there aren't necessarily determined by what events are on because TSN proper has all the, has the I think they have the Raptors, or is it Sports Center or Sportsnet? That look, the point is that the main channel has the big live sports events, and I think that's what they program mostly for. And
so this is like it being on ESPN2 in America.
Yeah, during Dynamite, I get twice during a 2-hour sitting of Dynamite. I get at least twice an advertisement for an emergency outdoor power generator for your home, and garden, like a filter to keep leaves out of your gutters. I get those.
Yeah, so you're getting like paid programming style advertisements.
Yeah, exactly. Like a little longer than 30 seconds, but not quite a minute. You know what I mean? Exactly. And you sort of look, like technically I would be the target, the target audience for that. I don't know if the average wrestling fan is for, outdoor emergency power generators. I don't know. But that's the kind, like, there's no premium advertisers. There's no beer ads. There's nothing to that effect.
Yeah, you wouldn't see like an ad for Toyota or like.
There are car ads. There are car ads, but again, I don't know how specifically tied into it because it just feels like it feels like you'll get ads for Kia with these 25-year-olds, getting ready to go out for a night on the town, and then they're going to jump into their Sportage and paint the town red kind of thing. And I don't know how close to reality that is or not, but like there's a bit of it's a hodgepodge where you go from, things for your home and then, buy a car so you can take your friends out club hopping just as long as you don't drink kind of thing. I don't know.
So the two things that stand out about the deal right away. The first is that it is only for 3 years, which by like sports media right terms is not particularly long.
Right.
Usually we see these deals around 4, more like 5 years. Sometimes they can be as long. I know the Netflix and WWE deal is technically for as long as 20 years, but could be much shorter than that. But usually we see these between like 5 and 8 years, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is only being 3. And I'd be really interested to know, and this will perhaps come out in the near future, of which side was really pushing for 3 years. Was it the AEW side, or was it the Warner Brothers Discovery side?
I was going to ask.
Because I think that makes a substantial difference. And is it, Warner Bros. Discovery being like, we're ready to commit for 3 years, but maybe we're kind of worried about the ratings trend. Maybe we're not super convinced that this is something we want to sign forever and ever. Maybe they don't want to sign a lot of things for a large amount of years, given the kind of turnover that has happened for that company post-merger. Or on the flip side is AEW being like, we're happy to be here for 3 more years, but we think we can, if they're like an athlete that wants to hit free agency sooner,
mm-hmm.
Because they think they can cash in on a bigger deal in 3 years from now. So that to me is a really interesting component of this deal, is that it's not quite as long as most deals and probably shorter than what we expected, despite being, still a hugely substantial deal in terms of funding.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I wanted to ask you if you felt like if that was a plus or a negative, if you thought if this was provisos put in by either party. And I think most people had a tendency to think, oh, well, it's Warner Bros. Who are, they just want to make sure that they're not getting themselves into something too long term. But, the other side, the on the flip side, it is entirely possible, that, like you said, you know, AEW sees itself as a great free agent, and in 3 years they want to get more cash. Do you one of the hallmarks of the first run of the first run, of the first deal that AEW had was the renegotiations, right? They renegotiated what, twice during the old regime, if I'm not mistaken. Do you have a feeling if this might be a thing for during this period here, especially considering how short it is?
I would say no. I think this is more of a stable deal in terms of, look, if we think about this as a TV show, right? A TV show, debuts, that gets a pilot episode and it debuts, and the network and the creators of the TV show and the production company sign a deal to produce 10 episodes or something like that. Usually it's rare for a TV show to be guaranteed anything more than that.
Sure.
However, if it's successful, you'll see a new deal come up, and it might be for an additional season, it might be for 2 seasons. And then if that's still successful, you'll start seeing like multiple year deals get signed. Like, we know that, to use like The Simpsons as an example, because they've had so many seasons, The Simpsons has like a 3-year deal where they're going to produce, a 37th season, a 38th season, and a 39th season. Because it's been established for so long. So I think this is like, if we look at the original TV deal, which was essentially just an ad split, then the second TV deal, and then even, the addition of Rampage, the addition of Collision, all of that is just kind of, we're at this exploratory phase of the relationship between this new thing that we started airing on our network, in AEW with television partners, negotiating a deal. And I think now this is the stable, locked in, this is what we're going to be producing. I wouldn't expect too many more surprises, but I think it's possible we could see more content. I mean, I wouldn't rule out additional reality shows or studio shows, or just something else in additional of AEW content that we could see on Warner Bros. Discovery. I could see them start using the video library more for product. I don't know, you could do like a AEW greatest matches and have like an hour of that airing on some random time. Maybe it airs like, at midnight on TBS or something like that, or right after Dynamite or something like that. I think there's probably more flexibility in that. But in terms of major stuff, I wouldn't expect a major change. The other big thing is that it's kind of two-part. The first is that there's no mention of Rampage in this TV deal at all. We have there's been really no indication about what's happening to Rampage. The fact that it is not part of this TV deal makes me think that might be the end of AEW Rampage.
Dave outright said in the Observer that it was discontinued.
Yeah. So I guess it's not like super duper duper surprising, but it is somewhat surprising. But the big thing about that, and this is what I think the major news was Wednesday, is that there still seems to be one more thing to come, and that is, what is this AEW Shockwave show? Is that going to be on another platform? And if it is, where is it going to be? And if it is on Fox, like what has been rumored it might be on, that is a complete game changer about everything. And that is, to me, because I feel like, Dynamite and Collision staying on TBS and TNT, they're getting more money for it. That's huge news in the terms of like the history of the promotion. But as far as where like I was, and I'm sure you were, and a lot of listeners were, it seemed like that's kind of what I expected, right? I expected, I expected them to kind of stay with Warner Bros. Discovery. It seems like that relationship has worked out really well for both sides. Sure. Tony obviously thinks very highly of them. But if they have another show that's on network television, that is like hugely unexpected. would be a real game changer in terms of being able to reach so many different people. Uh, it, it I'm hesitant to kind of say anything about it at the moment because we don't know much more. I know there was I know I read in the Observer, and I think it's SEC Scoops reported this, but it hasn't
Yeah,
really been
it's
confirmed anywhere else that.
yeah, BJ Bethel talked
that
about it.
Okay, yeah, and BJ Bethel's pretty reliable. He
Sure.
seems plugged in on some of this stuff.
Yeah.
That Warner Bros. Discovery has a um, exclusivity clause with AEW programming for cable
Mm-hmm.
and streaming, which makes sense with TBS and TNT cable stations, HBO Max streaming. So if there was going to be another show, it would be on. It would almost have to be on network television, which opens up really only a few possibilities. It could be on Ion TV, which is a very small
Yeah.
network television station. I don't. Do you guys have even? You guys probably don't have
No.
Ion in Canada, do
No.
you?
No.
Yeah, Ion
I've
is
heard of
a
it because of my American pals, but
yeah.
other than
It's
that, no.
it's it's similar to I would say it probably even replaced UPN in a lot of
Sure. Okay. That now I know what we're talking. Okay.
locations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
I don't know the exact history of that, but Ion I know has been experimenting with more sports live programming. Like Ion for me was like they just showed Criminal Minds like all day every day.
Sure.
It was like one of those that just showed a lot of like reruns of network television shows, and I know that they have a deal with the WNBA. And they have been doing really strong ratings for Ion with some of the WNBA games that they've had on there. So they've kind of pivoted to live sports. So could they be a player for this AEW Shockwave show? If that's the case, that's not really that big of a game changer because Ion is a smaller
It's
station
tiny. Yeah.
than a TBS or TNT. But if it's on Fox, like it's been kind of rumored to be, I mean that is a paradigm shift
I
for the
mean,
entire industry,
the,
really.
outside of Ion, what are the options, right? NBC, that's a no go for sure. ABC has two,
CW, which might have been a player, but is probably not with
probably
NXT
not.
and that relationship with WWE.
ABC's
Um,
connections to ESPN, ergo the UFC. I don't think that's necessarily possible either. So
yeah,
that leaves
I mean
CBS and Fox.
CBS. Yeah, and I mean if they got on CBS, that would be insane.
I mean,
Um,
you'd get a whole, you'd get the Blue Bloods demographic. You'd get the,
yeah,
that'd be tremendous.
I mean CBS is America's most watched network. They would do big numbers on CBS just by existing on CBS. Um,
Is
but
it
if they got a
America's
show on
most
Fox,
watched
I mean,
network? CBS,
it
really?
is it it is the number one most watched network in America. Our
That's
biggest network is CBS. And the 18 to
wow.
49 demo might shift around or not, but like in terms of like in America, I don't know how this pertains to Canada and other countries, but in America historically, there's the big three
Sure.
networks. There's NBC, CBS, and ABC.
Mhm.
And then Fox was really this upstart network that debuted, I think, in the late 1980s as a Murdoch like brand, which really and they basically created its own network off of the strength of the NFL and having the NFL programming that kind of forced its way into becoming a player and breaking up this triumvirate that had really controlled all of television before the invention of cable. And then there's like CW and Ion and a few others that are like smaller,
Yeah.
PBS, that are like smaller networks. But like there's the big four, and CBS is the most watched in America.
Now you just mentioned it.
No,
What if Shockwave ended up on PBS, and then Shockwave would begin by saying, today, and they'd say, this episode of Shockwave is made possible by viewers like you. That'd be tremendous, right?
it would be. I would. Look, I'm a PBS. What do they even call it?
A
I'm a
PBS head?
WGBH
Oh,
sponsor.
all right, okay.
So I do contribute to my local PBS station here in Boston, WGBH.
When I was a kid,
Um,
the PBS station was out of Burlington, Vermont. That was the one that, and
okay,
I watched the
you want to
hell
watch
out of
some
that.
Zoom? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, for kids who didn't have cable, that was, I watched a decent amount of PBS as a kid. I watched the Arthur cartoon. I believe Barney was on PBS, maybe.
Barney was on PBS. My
Yeah,
kids
so right in my
themselves
wheelhouse.
watched some of that too. Yeah, no, it's
Yeah. Anyway,
I feel like it's
that
not
would
too
be,
much.
yeah. I don't think people are talking about. I don't know if PBS is even considered
It's
broadcast network, but it is. It's like it's Channel 2 here. Um, but I mean that to me is like almost like the news about that. If we do see Shockwave, and that adds a lot of questions, like how much money are they going to get for Shockwave? Could they get? I think Dave was speculating like, um, if even if it's a 1 hour show on Fox, are we talking about an additional like $80 million to this
Well,
deal?
I
Like,
mean, that's the wild thing when you think about it, right? Because I have two thoughts on this. The wild thing is that, uh, you know, AEW managed to renegotiate its deals by adding more content, right? By saying, I wasn't Rampage out of the first renegotiation where they outright said, yeah, we'll do an extra hour of programming. Give us more money, we'll do an extra hour of programming for you. And the same thing was with Collision, right? And now they're taking away an hour of programming from Warner Bros. And they're getting this massive raise nonetheless, based on I guess the catalog, the current performance of the two shows, Collision, Dynamite. So that in that sense kind of blows my mind, where Warner Bros is like, sure, take an hour away and here's more money nonetheless. So that's kind of fascinating. The second thing that came to mind when I was thinking about the Rampage situation is that, or at least the Shockwave Rampage situation. If Shockwave goes to broadcast, it's got to become the A show, right?
it changes everything
It
like that. Like, and I have so many questions. Would you be, um, you know, let's say Shockwave is on Fox. Let's just say that. Are we talking 1 hours? Are we talking 2 hours?
Sure.
Are we gonna be taping that live? Like, are we gonna be taping it? I've heard that like Tuesday night or Thursday night would be the most logical
Well, I mean,
night for it. Most
everyone
likely Tuesday night.
everyone's broken it down, right? Mondays, no, like you
No.
don't know. Wednesdays, well, we already have Dynamite. Let's say that things stay the same. So Mondays are no go. Wednesdays and Saturdays, you already have that program. Sundays, well, Tony doesn't want to go head to head with football, right? And an occasional AEW pay per view on top of that. What's left?
Yeah, Friday you're talking like if we're gonna keep the Rampage slot, you can't really keep that because you have Fox. If it's gonna be on Fox, Fox has pivoted to doing these college football games on Friday night that do extremely well in the ratings. Shockwave is not gonna match that. But I agree, it has to become the A show.
Right, it
You're gonna
has to.
because what I think, I mean, and it's just a game changer for AEW in the sense that AEW's weakness when compared to WWE in a lot of ways comes down to like name recognition.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone knows WWE is. People might recognize the biggest stars of WWE. They'd certainly recognize like The Rock in these people that they show in the promos, even if they're not actually going to be on the show all that much. And that gives WWE a huge like just institutional advantage over AEW. But putting AEW on network television, like there was the idea that like WWE being on Fox would just by itself lead to a new boom period because all of these people that didn't have access or didn't like really know about WWE would be able to watch, would get into it, and they would not only would they be tuning in on Fox, but they'd be tuning in on Raw. They'd be going to live events. They'd be buying merchandise. They'd be subscribing to the WWE Network. That caused the stock price to go up for WWE back when that Fox deal was first announced, because the speculation that just by merely being on Fox, WWE was going to get this huge surge in interest that ultimately did not happen. This huge surge in interest came much later than that, for more typical wrestling reasons. Programs got hot and the fans got invested in certain wrestlers. Um, but I think that would almost definitely be the case for AEW, because I think while most people who are watching football on Sundays know what WWE is and have probably made a conscious decision about whether they want to watch it or not, that probably those same people probably don't know what AEW is.
Yeah, I
And you would
agree.
be reaching a new audience. You'd be making the product more accessible for people who maybe don't have cable, who haven't had a way to watch, Dynamite or Collision Live because they're not cable subscribers. Um, there is so much more. There's just a huge new audience to reach.
Yeah.
It just seems unlikely that AEW, SmackDown couldn't survive, WWE couldn't survive on Fox, but AEW will. It probably has to do with AEW coming in at a substantially lower price tag than
That's what I'm
WWE.
thinking, right? Like, and if
Well,
the
and I do wonder if Tony is the NFL owner. Um, like as I mentioned earlier, the Fox network was created basically by the NFL. It was a fledgling network. Rupert Murdoch got NFL games on Fox, and
I
it
mean,
allowed the network to survive. And so there's contacts there that Tony has, um, with these television partners through his other sports franchises that maybe open up these kind of opportunities for AEW.
I,
And it would be an absolute coup for AEW to get that spot.
if TV, TV executives are probably a lot more comfortable sitting down to have a meeting with an NFL team owner, or at least in the upper echelons of, as opposed to Carney wrestling promoter, who
Well, to be fair, it's probably Nick Khan, in area,
sure, but even if we go in the past,
Ari
right?
Emanuel.
Because
Yeah.
you know I think one of the reasons why this is also very mind-boggling is that this promotion is 5 years old. Like, it's there are promotions actively out there right now in the U.S. who have been around longer, who have TV but have been struggling to get better. Um, to
Well,
get better
there was a
deals.
great quote. Yeah, there was a great quote from, I think it was Kathleen Finch, who is
Mm-hmm.
an executive with Warner Bros. Discovery, who said, like, we're amazed with the work that AEW has been able to accomplish. This is in just 5 years. This is really something that you would expect from a brand that has been around 15, 20 plus years, which I thought was a huge compliment to what, and put into context from a legitimate major television executive that shows what AEW has been able to accomplish in terms of, we can talk about declining ratings, we can talk about declining attendance. Those are real issues for the company, but when you get a television executive that's kind of just coming out and saying, like, it's amazing how loyal of a fan base and a consistent following for 52 weeks a year that this company has, and that's why we're willing to make this long-term commitment and can commit this amount of money to them, is because of that. Is a remarkable achievement, because it really is.
And it helps put
One
it
thing
on
I want to,
context. It helps put it on in
yeah,
context for the wrestling bubble, for the rest of us nerds who are so we get tunnel vision at some point, and we don't realize that the business that AEW is putting in and ultimately generating for a television show, they, like, okay, it might not be operating on your whatever standards you have for a pro wrestling promotion, whatever, but the business that they're producing right now, as opposed to so many other things on television right now, is phenomenal. And for 5 years in, forget about it. Forget about it.
and I also think in this TV deal they'll be simulcasting Dynamite and Collision on
Yes.
HBO Max. So you no longer need cable to watch Dynamite or Collision. You can, in the US at least, you can subscribe to HBO Max. That is also kind of a game changer, because Max is in, I think, like 70 million US homes or something like that.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that's right.
or something like that. They have that many subscribers. And so that's again a part of the population that maybe hasn't been able to watch your product on a weekly basis. So you're kind
Exposing
of
them.
double dipping. Yeah, you're double dipping. You're getting the cable. You're catering to the cable audience still, but you're also able to reach, on average, younger audience that are cord cutters that don't have cable but have subscriptions to a streaming service. And this is, for WWE, it's huge for them to be on Netflix, which of course is the king of streaming services, because that is in a lot of ways reaching a new audience, or an audience that is not subscribing to cable. But it is, I think, significant that you are now presenting your product on a weekly basis to people who don't subscribe to cable. And that can be, that can manifest itself in a number of ways. That can be, you might have some casual fans that maybe they were watching YouTube clips, maybe they were following just online. Now all of a sudden they can watch it on a weekly basis, and they become, more valuable customers. They start going to live events when they're in their town. They buy merchandise. They purchase pay-per-views. Those are all ways to get extra revenue from people that previously were kind of on the outskirts of following your promotion because they didn't have cable.
And you mentioned it, in regards to, this is interesting. I think it's a neat little segue into another opportunity that's opening up here with WWE going to Netflix. You said it yourself, like they become global. That's the idea, is that everything is going to be distributed throughout the world. And a lot of people have made this point, and I'd like to know what you think about it at the same time, where this creates possibilities for AEW to distribute themselves on an international basis, where WWE is going to be abandoning some deals, right? Like we can assume in the UK, right? Probably Canada as well. AEW did probably and other places that, I'm not, India, maybe we finally cracked the code, who knows? But we've opened up these opportunities. These opportunities open up for AEW now that WWE basically said, not only do you handle our content distribution, Netflix, but you handle our distribution at large, right? WWE is completely hands off, which is also a complete flip of how they've handled their business for so many years. Now they're not even involved. Netflix is going to get them into all those homes. But AEW may be here on top of everything, on top of the, 185 million a year, on top of the whatever they'll get for pay-per-view revenue, whatever they'll get for Shockwave. They might even be getting more out of these possibilities for international distribution. Do you feel that we're clutching at straws at this point?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely always been a room for growth with AEW. Can they do a better job maximizing international TV rights deals? Can they get paid for these other countries? Because when we talk about the TV deal, we're almost exclusively always talking about the US TV rights, because those are by far the most lucrative TV rights. But over the years, WWE has been able to sign some pretty large TV deals, most importantly in India with their deal with Sony 6, which I believe is their second biggest TV deal. I forget, I think it's in the ballpark of something between $30 and $50 million a year. Don't quote me on that, but it is a pretty big TV deal. It is not a small, insignificant figure. And they have all these other distribution deals that have been, in all these other countries. But now that everything is going to be on Netflix, or every country that has Netflix, that is going to be substantially different. And AEW, in addition to maybe exploring more of these international deals, they can come in and say, oh, WWE, used to have an hour block of WWE or 2 hour block of WWE programming. Why not have AEW programming? You want wrestling? Here's wrestling. So this could be an opportunity for them to, not only organically expand their reach on a global basis, because that is an enormous advantage WWE has. Mm-hmm. We can talk about the gap in TV ratings in the US all we want, but a huge advantage WWE has ahead of AEW is WWE has incredible international brand recognition, has fans all over the world, and we've seen that WWE has been able to cash in on that in recent years by having these site feed paid events in international countries and drawing these huge lucrative gates in the UK, in France, in Germany. Obviously the Saudi Arabia deal is a consequence of of that as well. So that's a huge advantage WWE has had, and
Sure.
can AEW. They don't even necessarily need to cut into WWE's market, but just to also expand into that and reach a global audience is a potential huge advantage.
They've got they've got some elbow grease to put in. You know, there's some work to do, but the opportunities are there.
It's a real opportunity.
And I was just checking real fast. Like I can't find. I was just doing a little bit of research. I didn't find an exact figure, but in 2020, WWE was saying that the Sony 6 deal was their third biggest partner for TV deals behind the UK deal. So, I mean, that's still enormously significant.
Yeah, I actually thought it had. I'm trying to remember an old Observer, like just on the back of my head. I thought it had actually passed UK as its second biggest market, but
all I could find.
These are lucrative. Yeah, these are like lucrative opportunities that AEW should be trying to explore. I wanted to kind of hammer home this point here in the sense of
hammer away.
What is this? What does the TV deal mean to me as a fan of AEW and as a fan of pro wrestling in general?
I agree. It's a good moment to do a little full circle here, because the business talk is fun and it's interesting to think about all of that, but concretely.
Yeah. What is the TV deal from a business perspective means that, Tony Khan is going to make more money off of this thing. That's ultimately what it means. It means that Tony Khan is going to, probably make, a substantial profit off of AEW over the next few years, which is great for billionaire Tony Khan. But the more substantial thing for me as a fan of AEW and just a fan of pro wrestling in general is that the TV deal signifies that AEW is going to stick around as a major entity of professional wrestling and have an extremely strong presence in general entertainment by being on cable networks with large audiences, not as large as they used to be, but still large audiences, enormous reach, and perhaps even extending that if the Shockwave deal ends up being something on network TV. And that's ultimately what I think is the important thing to recognize is not just, AEW is going to make more money. Great. I don't really care if AEW makes a cent or not. The only thing I care about is, can AEW continue to be a place where wrestlers can get paid, matches can be put together that I want to see, that it is not a company that is poisoned by Vince McMahon's vision of pro wrestling. That's all it can ever be. It is everything that AEW has brought to wrestling that's a positive can continue to remain as a function over the next several years. That's what this TV deal ultimately means. It means AEW is here to stay on stable grounds, and that everything good that AEW has brought to the professional wrestling industry over the last few years is going to remain intact. And we don't have to be clutch. I was never like this, but we don't have to be, clutching and wondering, oh no, what if it gets canceled? What if it ends up like WCW and ends up going away and we're just left with WWE as our only real option? We don't have to be worried about that for now.
There was so much.
The TV deal shows.
There was so much anxiety. It was like I was at a stage that this is what I was looking forward to the most in regards to the deal announcement. It's just for everyone to be able to get a good rest at night, a good sleep, and not wake up the next morning wondering, is this going to continue? Because that was something
those people are still.
I know.
Those people are still like that.
At some point, at some point, you have to be able to move on, though.
I agree. But I do think that those people are still like that. And then that's not going to, I think people are like, oh, will this be the end of people questioning if AEW is about to go out of business? Will this be the end of, the grifters and the trolls who are always saying that, this isn't going to happen? No, I knew that wasn't going to happen, because it's not an ideology that's based on fact or reason. It's based on,
vibes.
Catering to a certain base and things like that. But it does, what this deal shows is that AEW is here as a major presence in professional wrestling. And it's going to remain that way because it is locked into a pretty large media establishments,
Mm-hmm.
especially moving, the moving stuff onto Max and getting really into the streaming game, which is something they haven't really explored at all, is hugely important. If they can get on Fox, that's great too, obviously. But this is really, just securing AEW's not just its existence, but its existence as a strong entity of entertainment that will be going forward, and we can have criticisms of some of the booking and some of the matches might not be that good, and they might be pushing some wrestlers that I don't really like at the expense of wrestlers that I do, but all of that is kind of secondary to at least the existence of the company as a major force in the industry.
And it kind of sounds corny at this point, but it is important to have competition in this environment. WWE was left unchecked and was able to buy up the competition. This is stuff that you can do on high levels, where the government gets involved and tries to prevent monopolies and so on and so forth, right? All sorts of regulatory what's the word I'm looking for? Not, organizations just keeping everything in check. No one ever decide. No, that's the thing with pro wrestling. Pro wrestling has been able to get away with so many things because it's pro wrestling. Like no one thought, well, who cares if there's only. No one thought, who cares if there's only. No one thought there shouldn't be just one national wrestling promotion. No one, in the high ranking establishment of the US government back in the early 2000s, no one was even concerned about that. It was, sure, who cares? But it nonetheless destroyed a bit of an ecosystem that had existed. Of course, got rid of competition, and then WWE did whatever it needed to do, unchecked over the next near 20 years, all by themselves, developing what they had to do. So when I say it's corny, it's corny, but it's true. Wrestling is in a better place now that there's competition, and solid competition. One that is, like you said, entrenched in entertainment establishments. That's not just doing things off of IWTV, God bless them, but no, that's something that will really and that offers conditions for pro wrestlers to come and make a proper living out of what they do as well, as entertainers, as combat sport practitioners, whichever way you want to flip it. They're not just gonna go around and trying to make the dates every weekend and getting their paydays like that. So it's good for WWE too. Now I know there's a bunch of factors.
People take. I was gonna say.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just like, look, if you're a WWE fan, the product 100% got way better once AEW debuted. And people take for granted
factors, but
right. There's a bunch of factors
did contribute. I'm convinced of that.
There's a bunch. Yeah, right. There's a bunch of factors that go into that. Obviously, with Vince stepping down and Paul Levesque taking charge. But even before Vince fully stepped down, there was some change in the positive feedback for WWE from its fans. And would that have happened without AEW putting some pressure on WWE? I don't think it would have. I think there's definitely something to be said about AEW providing competition and providing pressure onto WWE to improve the product, and pressure that wasn't there before. So even if you absolutely despise AEW, and you love WWE, there's still a role that AEW has played in benefiting WWE, just like the way WCW played a role for bettering WWF, in the 90s. Even if you absolutely hated WCW, WCW put a tremendous amount of pressure on WWF, which forced WWF to make some changes that ended up becoming very popularly received by its fan base.
Yeah.
So there's that too.
No, absolutely. It's a crucial thing, and I'm excited at the prospect that that this is going forward. that's mostly it. I'm kind of like on your side. Like I don't cheer companies on. You know what I mean? Like I'm not a guy about companies. I'm more about people. If anything, I'm more excited for talent. You know, who will be, but I mean, again, this has been going on for a couple of years now. But that will be able to negotiate better. Circumstances, but circumstances is not the right. Why am I slipping on all the words all of a sudden? Why am I just, better conditions? That's the word I was looking for. Jeez, better conditions for themselves.
You know, like look, pro wrestling should not be in a situation where one person, whether that person is Vince McMahon or Paul Levesque or whoever is in charge of WWE, pro wrestling should not be in a position where one person gets to control and dictate who gets to be a successful pro wrestler and who does not. And for a long time, that was the case. And we show what that can do to an individual if you watch the Vince McMahon documentary, or at least if you're familiar with the story, that when that person has that amount of control and authority over people's careers, a bunch of crazy stuff happens. And there's a reason all those old wrestlers now are who still can't admit that Vince was a bad person, because they view Vince as the person who made them millionaires, and Vince gave them an opportunity. It's because Vince controlled the entire industry. And that's not healthy. I think you look at what some of the comments Swerve has made over the last few months about the way he was seen in WWE and the way he's been allowed to be seen in AEW. There's a major difference between those two things, and that only comes about because AEW offers a viable alternative for people like Swerve, people who feel like they're not getting a fair shake in WWE to express their fullest talents, at least get to put in another spot where that becomes a possibility. So there's a lot of people that, it just came, AEW didn't come at the right time for them. There's a time where Zack Ryder could have jumped to AEW at one point.
Sure.
His career might look a lot differently if that happened.
He's actually wondering right now why he hasn't been called back anywhere. He's actually questioning himself right now. What a topical topic, Jesse.
But if we go to like 2010, 2011, Zack Ryder, when he was getting a lot of organic momentum amongst the fan base, and WWE clearly wasn't interested in pushing him as a top guy. Maybe he goes to jumps to an AEW in 2011, and his career looks very differently than it ultimately ended up being.
No, that's
pretty much any of those guys. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
What is Bryan Danielson's career like if AEW existed for the entire time? What's Nigel McGuinness's career like? I mean, that was one of the things I touched on with some of my writing recently, with Nigel kind of returning to the ring, which was like, we lost 13 years of Nigel McGuinness's career because there wasn't a place for him to work that, would give him, he thought would make it work. WWE didn't want him. WWE didn't want him to be a wrestler. TNA, was a joke by the time he was there and finished up there. Mm-hmm. He wasn't able to make it, enough money in Ring of Honor that he thought it would be worthwhile to continue to be a professional wrestler. I have a feeling his attitude would not have existed if an AEW had been around, a place where he could make a full-time living being a professional wrestler. And we lost, 13 years of who I think is one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. We just lost that entire stretch of his prime because there wasn't a company like AEW around.
So hopefully this deal is pretty much set. Hopefully it keeps on for a long time. We'll be having these discussions in 3-4 years again, Jesse. So we'll be doing all of this all over again. It'll be something, but look, I can be hopeful, looking forward, and say hopefully next time people won't be questioning if they get a deal. Hopefully it'll be more along the lines of who is going to get the deal. Who is going to get AEW, as opposed to, whether or not AEW is going to be thrown into the bin or tossed into oblivion, which seems more and more unlikely. But look, it's pro wrestling; you never know. Jesse, I want to thank you so much, tremendously, for joining me today to share some thoughts and break this down a little more. Do you want to plug your stuff before we head on out?
Yeah, just a Gentleman's Wrestling Podcast. That is my podcast. I don't know when By the time this airs, we'll still be a few days away from this running. But if people want to check out my next episode, um, I will have I have Suit Williams and Lyric Swinton on. We're going to be giving out like some 5-year awards for AEW.
Oh, fun.
Kind of talking about the highs and the lows of AEW over the course of 5 years. I'm pretty excited to talk about some of those subjects. We'll talk about like the best match. We'll also talk about like who was the worst signing and what was the worst promo ever in the history of AEW and that kind of thing, which I think would be a fun piece to reflect on. She is a can. I think there's an obvious candidate for worst signing, and I will get to that. On that podcast, I think it'll be a fun discussion point.
Yeah, don't spoil anything. Hang on. That sounds like a fun show. And if your show's not out yet, I highly recommend the most recent episode where you're chatting with David Bixenspan about the Vince McMahon doc.
David.
You guys brought up so many points where I was like, hell yeah. Just the idea of, the women, the only women who the only women that were really interviewed, right, for the Vince doc were all women who are either Vince's family or Trish Stratus, who is like a company gal, right? But there's no one else in this entire scope that they couldn't pull out. And I was like, why didn't I think of that? Like, it's just the podcast you had with Bix was a series of course, they're right. Why didn't I think of this? It's so obvious.
Yes, it's that's not time I'm ever going to get back. That time I spent watching this band documentary.
I didn't hate the first 2 episodes, but episode 3 and on, no, there's nothing here.
I watched some kind of because I felt pressured to watch them to so I could have like content related to them. And like I probably watched them in like 2 quick succession. I was just like, I'm so sick of hearing about some of this stuff because a lot of it is old ground, for people like you and I.
A lot of it is, but hey, at least we learn. At least Hulk Hogan admitted to snitching to Vince about the union. That's something, right? That's news.
Surely that will change a lot of things.
Thanks again, Jesse. It was a blast having you again. I appreciate it tremendously.
Thanks.
Let's talk about WWE Bad Blood 2024. Yes, the return of the Bad Blood pay-per-view that, that stalwart pay-per-view name that resonates with all wrestling fans everywhere. Such fond memories. Hey, if you, in the comments, right now in the comments, I want you to tell me about your fondest Bad Blood memories. Yeah, it's fine. But is it really the Bad Blood we remember? If there is only one D to bad, I don't think it's the same. I think we're trying out something else here. Nonetheless, this pay-per-view happened on October 5th, 2024, Atlanta, Georgia, State Farm Arena. According to our pals over at WrestleTix, 14,496 tickets were distributed. This could still, I'm recording this on the Sunday the next day, so there still could be some finalizing, some updates to come. But as I'm recording this on Sunday morning, that's where we're at. The setup was for 14,507. I'm looking at the map. There weren't many tickets left. I know the State Farm Arena is like 16,000, 17, like 16,500, 17,000, something in that ballpark. I can't quite remember. So if you consider that they closed off some sections, to do the video wall and this and the ramp and all of that, maybe this is close to a sellout. I don't know. I don't know. They must have done some good business here. Well, actually, we know they did some good business. I mean, look, 14,000, that's a fantastic house. Like, there's no, you can't spin this. You can't just, this is a fantastic house that they got. But we also know they did good business because Triple H later on in the evening came out and essentially said, hey, thank you with the, biggest grossing arena show. Thank you for Thank you once again for paying exorbitant prices to come see our show. And he said this was the 60th sellout this year for WWE. Like, again, like I don't know if it's a sellout because the capacity of the building is bigger than what they attended. But like I said, when you factor in the stage with the setup, the video wall, then does it become a sellout because you're removing seats to set all this stuff up? I don't know, but he said it's the 60th sellout that WWE has had this year. I mean, they've been having tremendous business. I don't know how accurate 60 is, but okay. And then of course, like I mentioned, once again touting that it was the new record gate for an arena show, and I'm like, I'd be, again, this is the kind of stuff that if I were in the attendance, I'd be like, why are you telling me this? Tell that to your investors, not your fans. Unless the fans are just there and are gobbling everything up and like, yeah, we paid tons for these tickets. Hooray. We're the best. Thank you, Paul. Clap, 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 clap. Well, yeah, so that was a show. It was definitely a wrestling program. I mean, look, we've once again hit we've once again returned to the mid Paul Levesque pay-per-view, right? A couple of last shows or PLE, excuse me. Last couple of shows that I watched, I thought there were some bright spots. There was stuff that I felt was good enough to sink your teeth into. This was a one-match show, and it's another one of these shows where if you are not a WWE fan, this does not speak to you. So myself, for instance, this is what I generally like to. This is how I would like to consider WWE shows like this. I would like to be able to run in completely blind or close to. It's hard to be blind when it comes to WWE angles and stories and whatnot because, well, first of all, because I keep up with it. But even if I didn't want to keep up with it, it's the dominant promotion. It's everywhere. Everyone talks about it. It's super hot right now, so it's really hard to avoid, understanding what's going on. But I would like to be able to come in, maybe not completely blind, but like now, just like right now. How about that? I'd like to run into these shows with the level of understanding that I have right now from someone who doesn't watch the weekly shows and who comes in for the big PLEs and sit down and be like, well, a lot of the angles I'm not quite invested in, but this was a great wrestling match. That's what I would like. That's what I would like these shows to be, because me not being invested in angles is on me because I don't watch the weekly shows. So if you are trying to get me hype about a match because the Judgment Day split up, I'll just shrug my shoulders. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. And I say it's on me, but if the angles were better, if the angles weren't so annoying and, WWE-ish, maybe I would be into the weekly product and then we wouldn't have this issue here. But the point I'm trying to make is that I feel like I as a non-WWE fan should be able to come into the shows and watch it and still get some enjoyment out of it. Yeah, pretty much every other promotion in the world, I could jump in without understanding, what the big angles, what the big stories are, and still get a good match out of it, right? I can drop into a Stardom show or a pay-per-view show and not necessarily be super invested into the shows themselves, into the angles and the development, but I can walk out of there going, well, this was good, this was great, I had a good time at this show. And Bad Blood is exactly perfectly designed for the WWE fan base. and not for people like me. And on the flip side, and I want to make sure I'm clear here, that's a good thing. Like, why would WWE design their pay-per-views for someone like me who doesn't watch the weekly stuff, who is not into it? Like, they're better off, right? I mean, not even better off. Like, it's just purely logical that they do their shows for the millions of fans that they have out there right now. There's no questioning. I don't think anyone has any is doubting that WWE is super hot right now. So why would they be designing their shows? Why would they be putting PLEs together in any other way than to please their audience and make sure they continue to be satisfied instead of me, who's a bit of a grump, a little set in his ways, who's got this really bad habit of wanting pro wrestling on his shows. It's like kind of wild, kind of wacky like that. Why would they do anything to try to make me happy? They don't have to make me happy. I wish I'd be happy. I wish I could come here and say and slap this table and tell you this was the greatest pay-per-view. This was one of WWE's top shows of the year or whatever, but it isn't. And I don't even think WWE fans thought this show was all that great either. I think there's outside of one match, which we'll get to very shortly, outside of the one match, there's nothing really here to attract any attention, to get people excited, there's just, and you can see it with the fan base where they're like, and you can see it on Cage Match too. Like I don't think the WWE fans thought this was anything really special. I really don't. I didn't think it was. I thought it was an extremely mid pay-per-view. Very, very bog average, like, bordering mediocre. But there's one match on the card that that made the show. They decided to start with it, and the rest, everything just started circling the drain from that point on. It's just as simple as that. That's my analysis, everyone. We'll see you next time. I mean, honestly, you could end here, or you could just hang around for a few more, for my thought processes throughout this all. The show started at a very early time, as opposed to usual, 6 p.m. Eastern, as opposed to the 8, and ran till about 9:30ish, something like that. And the reason why is because WWE didn't want to impede on the UFC show that was happening last night, which I really thought was interesting. Like, WWE moving its schedule around to accommodate someone else. How many times has that happened? How many times? You know what I mean? Like, look, I know. I'm being a little facetious here. I will, bear with me, because Westminster Dog Show, U.S. Open, these things have happened in the past. But how many times? Like, let's say, but these are things that happened because the network wanted, the network was imposing this on them, right? How many times has it happened that WWE has abdicated a typical spot that they'd have for another combat sports organization? I'm pretty sure never. Nothing comes to mind off the top of my head. Maybe someone will come up with something, but just off the top of my head, I'm like, I don't know. But I'm going to tell you, I didn't hate the 6 p.m. start time. I didn't hate the fact that, around 9:30 p.m., everything's all nice and tidied up. And I was watching it with Kristen, and then we're like, hey, we can just watch a movie instead of starting to wrap things up and, whatever. So we pulled out. We watched because it's spooky season, of course, but we're also horror movie fans in general. Like we want to suspense, thriller, horror movies. That's kind of our bag. And we watched VHS Beyond. You know, the VHS film series, the anthology horror series, where we enjoyed the series. It has not been a perfect series. I really like the first one. There's the very first one, and there's a lot of, ups and downs throughout the VHS series. But I will say with somewhat a somewhat reasonable account that VHS Beyond is my favorite installment of the VHS series. It starts off with a blast. There's a nice little, goofy kind of comedy style horror thing in the middle. And then you've got a story by Mike Flanagan, directed by Katie Seagal, who also, who is also in that short, in that one there that's just, is like nothing else you've seen in the VHS series. So if you've enjoyed the VHS series so far, or you're like, oh, it's been ups and downs, this is like this. I really feel like this is a high point. I think it was tremendous. I really do believe that this is one of the best ones. And if you've never seen one, that's fine. It's unconnected. They're all unconnected now. For a while, they tried to connect the series with like one overarching theme, where everyone would find these, people would start finding these like forbidden cassette tapes and would watch them, and then bad things would happen to the people. And they did that like for three or four installments, I think. And then they just dropped it. And I think the series has been fine without it. You don't even miss it here. I honestly like, it really starts off tremendous, like with a bang, and finishes wonderfully. And there's a good balance between the two. It was really, you're looking for a nice little spooky movie, not elevated horror, not something that, where, oh, the ghost is the ghost, or the creature is a metaphor for that person's, fear of heights or whatever the fuck, or the issues that they had with their father growing up. It's nothing like that. It's not like that. It's good. It's good, and it's well done enough to not be so that you're not. This is extremely cheesy, but there's a bit of that too. Anyway. This is not a horror movie review, but I recommend it. I think you should give it a watch. Why don't we get into this to the show here? Why don't we go ahead and do that? Kit, I don't understand, what was the thing? Because honestly, I was baking cookies. Okay, I was baking cookies. I was making oatmeal chocolate chip cookies. By the way, turned out fantastic. Thank you for asking. And when my final batch was coming out as the pay-per-view was starting, and I was like, it's not a big deal. The show starts at 6, but the actual wrestling won't start until like 6:15. So whatever, it doesn't matter, because we're gonna go through their big presentation, and then the entrances, and whatever, all the nonsense they do. So I knew I had a little time, so I was pulling out my final batch of cookies. I was getting them cooled down and whatnot, and then and then I go back into the living room, and I take a look, and I take a look at what's going on, because I hear what's going on, and I come in and I'm like, why are Triple H and Cody Rhodes exchanging craft envelopes and talking about missions, and like, and then staking out with Metro Boomin, and I'm sure some of you out there know who he is. Apparently, he's in the game. He's in the hip hop game. He's a producer. He's a performer. Whatever. Why is he staking out? And I guess an Atlanta figure on top of that. I just didn't understand what was happening. I didn't know what, straight off the bat, I'm like, okay, maybe this is, I'm putting this on me. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say this stunk. This was probably something for the fans, but they didn't think about the casuals here. I'm sorry, like WWE needs to think about the casuals a little more, because I'm sitting there wondering what the hell this is going on, and I am absolutely a WWE casual. They're losing me. You know what happens, right? You know what happens when you start losing the casuals. When you start losing the casuals, it's all downhill, folks. WWE in the mud. They're not, they're doing things that I don't understand. They're going to lose me. Oh, and probably one of the things that broke my heart the most was seeing Bill Goldberg palling around with Killer Mike. That didn't sit well with me. That made me extremely sad. I like Killer Mike. I love Run the Jewels. Killer Mike's a, awesome dude. And then seeing him there with Bill Goldberg and Bill Goldberg palling around with him, like they rage against the machine together. Bleh, bleh. Hope it was worth the seats, Killer Mike. You broke my heart. So the show started off with the Hell in a Cell match where CM Punk defeated Drew McIntyre, and I no two ways about it. I like this match. There was no reason here for me to look. It would be extremely disingenuous if I were to sit here and tell you, well, hang on, this and that. No, this was good. Look, I was skeptical coming in. As you know, if you listened to my preview, if you were hanging around on my streams, you know that I came into this match super skeptical, wondering what the hell was going to happen. That CM Punk was once again promising us some high levels of violence for this, and and that he wanted to bring back the Hell in a Cell to its former glory, to the heights it was once known for, which I applauded. He was using language that was very close to what I would say, when it comes to how Hell in a Cell has stopped feeling important. That's kind of like just a thing now. Whereas in the past, it was this match that would end careers and people would. So now, did it reach those heights? Did it reach the heights of, let's go with it, HBK versus Undertaker? No. Did it reach the levels of incredibly insane violence of Taker versus Mankind? A fucking course not. That's a capsule in time, and you don't want to reproduce those things. That's just cuckoo. But did this feel like a Hell in a Cell match? Yes, it did. There were no pauses to and cameras moving away from a guy bleeding so that the medical team could run in and patch him up with super glue. There was none of that. There was blood. There was brutality. I thought this started off pretty physical and doing things that I was like, I've never seen this before. I've never seen people rip the legs off of tables, to use them against the other guy. I was like, all right, okay. Just little things. Sometimes it doesn't take much. And, Punk used them, and they were quickly tossed aside after, but still, I'm like, I've never seen that before. That was fun. And then they blade, and then they go for it. They bleed after being thrown into stuff. CM Punk runs the razor first, and then Drew does as well. And who knew Drew McIntyre was such a gusher? That was just tremendous. The amount of blood that was just pouring from his head. I was taken aback. I was, kind of afraid that did he cut too deep? Because he's not used to doing this. Brother's not used to doing this. Did he cut too deep? Did he pull an Eddie Guerrero? Are we in trouble here? It was nonetheless under control, but that was very surprising. How much how much blood did end up being poured out of Drew McIntyre's head. So that was something. They trade some moves, a sharpshooter by CM Punk, because nothing says Hell in a Cell like a finisher, like a submission move, I should say. Suplex by Drew McIntyre off the apron, through a table on the floor, which was a tremendous spot. Just a great spot. A great spot. There's no two ways about it. He does a white noise on the steps, which was also tremendous. An Anaconda device by CM Punk. Again, nothing says Hell in a Cell brutality like submissions. They're using wrenches throughout the match because they emptied out that's right. That's how Drew got busted open, right? The toolbox shot to Drew's head was phenomenal. I'm like, wow, that's gratuitous. And it's funny how the safety police didn't turn out. Where's the safety police on this? It's an unprotected shot from a toolbox, which, has the potential to be a lot more detrimental to one's head as opposed to a gimmicked chair. But of course we're not clutching any. We ain't clutching any pearls on this one, folks. Oh, no. And of course, and things are going great. And of course, they can't help themselves, right? They just cannot fucking help themselves. CM Punk pulls out the little black bag, and you're like, here come the tacks, right? But no, it's the beads. It's crafting beads that resemble the beads used to make CM Punk's bracelet. And I thought that the bracelet thing, folks, will have been the worst part of this entire feud. This was the best part of this entire feud, this match, but they just fucking couldn't help themselves. They had to do the tie-in somehow. They could not help themselves. Not that much of a big deal because I feel like it didn't take away. It didn't, outside of an audible groan from your boy here, and me just slapping my forehead going, why do they do this to themselves? Why do they have to do such corny, asinine bullshit in something which is clearly violent, that was designed that way? And CM Punk stuffs the beads into Drew's mouth and then wraps some chain around his knee and GTS's him because he tried a couple of times with GTS's and it didn't work out. Look, I thought this match was phenomenal. And I thought both guys worked really well. And, Drew was tremendous. CM Punk was very good. But I think at this point you have to put it together, right? You have to come to this conclusion in your mind that CM Punk is going, he's doing submission moves in this match because he knows that his body can't follow. He just knows that he can't go as hard. He has to be careful. And that's why he's doing these things, right? I was wondering, what's he going to do and not get injured? Because it won't take much for CM Punk to be put on the shelf again. So I thought this was smartly worked. And he did take a couple of pretty impressive bumps here. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's not as if everything was soft as a feather here and Phil was in bubble wrap. But you could tell that, a lot of these spots were just designed for him to not go crazy with his overall physique, his physicality, excuse me. I thought this was very good. I'm giving this 4 stars, more than very good. I thought this was tremendous. I thought this was a great Hell in the Cell. Now, is it, like I said, is it one of the greatest? Well, no. Well, hang on. Look, here's the thing is that, everyone always remembers the same Hell in the Cells, but there have been so many Hell in the Cell matches that were just completely meaningless that, yeah, probably, we're probably going to remember this one because it was a return to form. Now, if WWE wants to build off of this and make the Hell in the Cells truly like violent, vile, bloody affairs moving on, then I think maybe the legacy of this match will end up being more important than the match itself. So 4 stars for me. I mean, right now on the cage match, it is rated 228 votes on the Sunday morning, of course, at a 9.40 out of 10. Let's take a look at cage match. Let's see what kind of company it's holding right now at 9.40. What other matches are scored in that vicinity? Right now, it would be the 163rd best match of all time. The company it's keeping is with a Hiroshi Tanahashi Kazuchika Okada match from the G1 Climax 2018. We have Manami Toyota versus Mima Shimoda, which is an absolutely phenomenal match. We've got a Hiroshi Hase Masahiro Chono match in this environment as well. A Ric Flair versus Ricky Steamboat match. From a house show. Like, that's the company that right now, an El Generico Kevin Steen match, the Fight Without Honor, actually, now that I'm digging a little deeper here. A CM Punk, no, that's rated a little higher. Misawa versus Akiyama from all the way back in 2000. I mean, I don't think it's as good as those. I really don't. It's like, I don't think it's as close, but okay. I mean, we're going a little overboard here, if you ask me. But you do you, WWE fans. But this was like 31 minutes, and when I was getting things ready, I was like, 31 minutes. It didn't feel like 31. It really didn't. There's nothing really, bad to say about the match. It's just like, if the WWE fans were into it, go for it, rate it, give it all the 10s you want. But isn't this interesting? But this is interesting, and it's another example of this, right? Of when, how most of the time WWE fans, right, are like, oh, wrestling. The wrestling doesn't matter. It's about the storylines, and they always push back when other companies do these great matches and have these great wrestlers, and their pushback is, yeah, but where's the story? What's the storyline? And and ultimately that's all that matters. And they don't really seem, they always push the wrestling as secondary, right? But the minute that something looks and smells and tastes like a good pro wrestling match, they just lose their minds. Then they go, woo! Then suddenly it becomes like this thing, right? And all of the matches that AEW has involved blood in them recently, and cutting people up and being violent. They're like, oh, this is all unnecessary. We don't need to do this, so on and so. And look at what we got here. And I hope all the pearl clutchers who gasp audibly whenever AEW does this kind of stuff, whether it be in Blood and Guts, whether it's be Hangman Swerve or whatever. I hope they're doing the same types of reactions here now that their favorite promotion, now that their promotion of choice is doing the Blood and Guts. I hope that they have the same type of reaction and condemnation of what's going on. Anyway, now unfortunately, the rest of this card just starts dropping, right? From this point on, we don't even remotely reach the highs that we got in this opening match. Oh, they were doing skits up in a VIP lounge, and they're putting over the people who are there. Diamond Dallas Page is here. Oh, and Mickey James. Oh, and Pete Rosenberg. What? Okay. Do you want people to think that it's cool? You just say, Pete Rosenberg's here. It's like, okay, all right then. Bayley Boyd versus Nia Jax was next. In fact, Nia Jax defeated Bayley to retain the WWE Women's Championship. This was an extremely standard, run-of-the-mill Nia Jax match. I know, which was basically a rematch from SummerSlam, right? Didn't they do this at SummerSlam? And here's the thing, like outside, okay. Let's start. I'm trying to say too many things at once. Start with the match analysis. I will give Nia Jax this. All right. It looks like she dropped some weight, and I think she's more mobile than she used to be. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that she is suddenly incredible. People keep telling me she's doing the best work of her career. Well, again, when the bar is in the mud, you can only go up from there, right? So I'm not impressed with her work. I think she's still an extremely mediocre pro wrestler, but I will give her this. She was a lot more mobile, and I don't watch her I don't watch the week to week. So other than that, she's not as static and stationary as she once was. And, my heart rends in twain every time I hear fans talk about how, well, it's Nia Jax, but, Bayley's there, and Bayley's a great pro wrestler, and Bayley will be able to be the ring general and guide through a great match. And, and I'm like, I love Bayley too. And I've always had a soft spot for Bayley. I will always, and you can go back and check the tape. I will always believe that Vince utterly fumbled the hugger Bayley, who was, I still to this day believe that he had a female John Cena on his hands, and he just didn't know what to do with it because he's completely disconnected and didn't understand. And Bayley was one of the better workers in the Four Horsewomen. Mercedes, Bayley, and then you could say Becky or Charlotte, depending on the week, right? Not anymore. And I don't want to rag on anyone, but there does come a point where you just have to look at the facts here. Both of her knees are completely blown. She's not the Bayley that she once was, and I know we hang on to this nostalgia where it's like where you remember these people in their best days and how they made you feel, and you're like, well, they will continue to make me feel. They will be as good as I remember, but no. And Bayley can only do so much, especially against Nia Jax. It's not. I don't think this was a particularly good match. I gave it 2 3/4 star. Nia, and besides, like, everyone was waiting for Tiffany Stratton to run in, like that, right? Like, I found the crowd was pretty dead for the match, except for a couple of spots, like the one spot. I think Bayley did a Samoan drop or something on Nia, where you're like, yeah, that's pretty impressive. Don't get me wrong, but everyone was just waiting for Tiffany Stratton to run in. And then when she did, she runs in before the match is over. Now, is this a new thing? Like, this is a stupid thing to do. This is dumb, right? Like, why would you do that? Why would you want to turn this into a 3-way match? Just wait till the match is done. Like, get them completely off guard. Like, I don't understand the psychology of it. It doesn't make sense. You're making it harder for yourself to cash in your stupid thing. And I'm here wondering about what's the best way to do cash-ins. Well, I am sick of the cash-in gimmick. So what am I even doing here? But everyone's waiting for Tiffany to come in, and she does. And when she does, it's while Nia Jax, while the Nia Jax is is like woozy, doesn't quite see what's going on, and the referee had a bump, right? A ref bump, which added to the imbecility of Tiffany Stratton running in. Like, why would you run in now? First of all, because you'll be making this a three-way, and second of all, because the ref is out. Like, I'm like, this is dumb. Like, this makes no sense. It makes Tiffany Stratton look like a goober. And she's about to do the cash in. The ref gets back up to their feet, and Stratton's about to cash in, and Nia Jax does the Undertaker sit up, and Tiffany Stratton says, "Oh no, I wasn't going to cash in," because they're friends, you know. Nia Jax just has to go back and watch the tape. Like, what are we doing here? Like, let's not be morons. Let's not be imbeciles here. Anyway, she doesn't cash in, is the point, despite all these shenanigans. And Nia wins with the bonsai drop, and we can all move on with our lives. I don't know, 2 3/4 stars, just a mediocre match and nonsense. Damian Priest versus Finn Balor. This is I think this is supposed to be one of these big build-ups because the Judgment Day blew apart, and and Damian Priest, wasn't this the deal here? Is that he's finally getting his hands one-on-one with Finn or something? That it doesn't matter, because I'm not into it. I don't understand the intricacies of this feud. So it's fine. And again, this is another match where everyone's just waiting for the Judgment Day to run in and do the nonsense. You don't get invested in the match until that happens. And honestly, listen, and I wrote it here in my notes. I thought it was very interesting how these two guys were getting in there, having a nice little strike fest of a match, right? They were, striking each other. But it's funny, no one's offense looked impactful. Nothing looked like it was actually causing damage, that it was substantial. They were just landing things. It's as if they were sparring, going through motions. They're landing their moves and everything, but nothing feels dangerous. Does that make sense? I thought it was very curious. Anyway, the Judgment Day eventually do all get involved, but hey, Damian Priest, valiant babyface, fights them all off and gets the win. Why couldn't they have booked Damian Priest like this while he was champion? Why couldn't he have won it like this instead of, doing a sneaky cash-in thing? I think that would have done marvels for him. Would have made him, like, I'm looking at him, getting rid of all of his former friends who are all like, just a bunch of mid-carders, right? Like, think about who's left in the stable, right? You got Finn Balor. Yeah, or at least who came out, right? Finn Balor, JD McDonough, Carlito Caribbean Cool. Right? Those are the guys who ran out because Liv and Dom were doing something else. Dom is, king of the mid-carders. It's a completely uninteresting group now. Like, it's just a bunch of J-Brones. They're going to turn into the job squad. Pin me, pay me. That'll be it. Yeah, I mean, there you go. I don't know why Damian Priest wasn't booked any stronger during his reign, leading up to his reign. Why they had to bog it down with all of this, because I'm looking at him go here and I'm like, well, this would have been a great champion. This is how you book your top guy right here, but he's not even close to being a top guy. So ultimately, none of it matters. Yeah. Forgot to mention, before this match, they showed X-Pac, Tully Blanchard, and Arn Anderson out there in the crowd. Big part for Arn. Complete disrespect for Tully. but the Brainbusters were there. That was nice. You know, they're in Atlanta. That's Horseman territory. And I promise you, most of these WWE fans out there have no idea what the Four Horsemen are. They or who they are, or the history. They don't know. They don't know. They'll pretend they know, but they don't know. That's why I think it's funny about these. Oh, we're bringing in all these legends. We're locking them down in contracts and whatnot. But no one knows who these people are anymore. It's like that ship is passed. And I talked about it this week on one of the streams. Like this ship is passed, where you have people who are truly tuned into the history of pro wrestling. They'll just know. They know Arn Anderson because of AEW, because he was doing the thing with Cody for a while. That's how they know him. They have no idea who Tully Blanchard is. Tully Blanchard should be getting bigger pops in Atlanta. Anyway, this was the big Triple H announcement where he came in to congratulate everyone for spending tons of money. What did he put the attendance at? Oh, he did give the attendance 16,092, right? I forgot to that. I should have known. Failure on my part. I should have mentioned that from the start. We'll see how that concords with the WrestleTix update. Kind of, it feels a little weird to me for the same reasons I talked about, because of the stage setup. They have to take away some seats. But anyway, they said it was a sellout. So, that's fine. Good for them. But it's WWE. Well, it's a wrestling promotion. You can almost expect the numbers to not be exactly spot on like that. And then he being Triple H starts putting over Crown Jewel, and it's the beginning of a new era. He says they're going to do an annual event at Crown Jewel where the WWE Champion and the WWE World Champion for both men and women will be fighting each other in two different matches, of course, to win the 2024 Crown Jewel Champion. I'm like, what? And then he unveils the belt. Now, look, I don't really get excited about contemporary belt designs. It's very hard for me to get into it. I don't particularly think this one is great. But I was like, wow, that's a big belt, and I appreciate really big wrestling titles. Like, I think that's a good thing. Kind of reminded me of the Gift of the Gods title, like just when I saw it like that, the Gift of the Gods title from Lucha Underground, right? And he said he's got 50 carats of diamonds. God damn, Paul. Wow. Did you pay for it, or did the prince did? You remember, back when they started their relationship, you remember how the prince wanted his, he wanted Undertaker to be there, and he was asking for Ultimate Warrior, Warrior's dead, And then they started that one time saying that, I don't know if it was Crown Jewel specifically, but it was one of the Saudi shows where they said, where it was being hyped as bigger, or at least as big as WrestleMania. Wasn't that the tagline? Which I was like, that's just the stupidest, corniest thing, that's because the Saudis want this show to be the crown jewel. They want this show to be the most important show on the calendar year because of all the money that they're pumping into this. They want the biggest show of the year for WWE to be there. And that's just not going to happen. WrestleMania, because WrestleMania is WWE's biggest show of the year. It's wrestling's biggest show of the year. It may go to Saudi Arabia one year, but it's not going to be like, there's nothing on the WWE calendar that will feel as big or as spectacular as WrestleMania. And I don't even think WWE wants that. But, you know, the Saudis always kind of wanted the biggest, the best. They wanted to feel like they were getting something special and that it was only them that was going to get it, right? And I feel like probably these discussions started up again, not with Vince being gone and whatnot. And like, well, look, you know, you remember they did the greatest Royal Rumble and they gave Braun Strongman a title, right? That green belt. We've never seen it again, right? It just completely fell off the earth. This might be the same type of situation. We're going to start doing this annually, you know, and this will crown the 2024 Crown Jewel champion. It's kind of all right, you know, whatever. You know, that it's a belt that will never be on WWE TV, and they'll pull it out for the Saudi shows, and that'll be that. But like, whatever. What else is going to happen during the year? Does this title get defended? Does it get defended only in Saudi Arabia? Like, what's the deal? This is clearly something this is clearly something in the same vein of the Saudis asking WWE to make their shows feel special, to put things happening there that cannot be seen anywhere else. And this is like, okay, well, we'll do this. Yeah, this will never be mentioned on TV. Like, who cares? And the titles won't be on the line by both champions, right? So it'll likely be Cody versus Gunther, right? And will very, very likely be Cody versus Gunther, which is a match that a lot of fans would like to see. I myself would like to see it. I'm not going to watch it because I don't watch the Saudi shows, you know. And whoever, you know, who are the women's champions right now? Liv and who? Who's the champion on the SmackDown side? Oh, Nia. That's gonna suck. Like, that's gonna stink. Anyway, it's whatever. And I don't have any thoughts on the belt. It didn't catch me, so I'm like, it didn't excite my my senses. So it's probably a bad design. I like I like the rectangular aspect of it. I think that really makes it stand out from the rest of the WWE titles. You know, I think it's somewhat better on that front, but again, like, still I'm like, Gunther shows up to just like be Gunther, right? And starts calling out Goldberg, who's in the audience. And Goldberg is there with Gage and Goldberg's wife. And then Gunther starts talking trash to him, says, tells Gage, I hope your dad is a better dad than a professional wrestler, which I thought was funny. It's what everyone thinks. And then Goldberg hops the ramp and then tries to tries to come after Gunther is what I'm trying to say. And then security arrives, and are they building to Gunther versus Goldberg? God almighty save us. Like, I have no interest in this, but y'all know why. Bill Goldberg coming back for one more match. There were over the past couple of months, he'd been very vocal about, not having a retirement match, not having a retirement tour, and he tried to put it on himself with a promoter in Israel, right? And, of course, that turned out to be, a big bowl of hooey. And, and you could tell he was a little bitter that WWE never gave him the send-off he felt like he deserved. I have nothing. I have no interest in Goldberg retirement for a guy who was, unquestionably a draw for the era. There's things you just can't take away from him. This is a guy who has always disliked the business. He has never given back to the business. He has only taken and taken and taken, and has never created or built or given anything back. This is a guy who always has put himself forward first, and everyone else could go disappear. And on top of that, he's washed. when you're washed, when you weren't even really good to start with and you're washed now. Like, what are we doing? It's junk. It's junk. Goldberg is junk. And, well, the point being that I was originally making is that he's been very quiet about people not giving him a final farewell. So maybe this is what we're building up to, right? You know, and he saw Sting, you know, and he's grumbling and he's like, how come he gets that? I was like, well, it's fucking Sting. You know, and you're just Goldberg. Anyway, Diamond Dallas Page, Mickie James, and Scott Steiner are in the front row. I would say, in the same vein as I was talking about earlier, I think most current WWE fans know who Scott Steiner is because of the Steiner Math promo, but they probably don't even know about the Steiner brothers. They probably don't know that, you know, they probably don't know about the tag team. They just know they know him with the chainmail on his head. Probably some know who Mickie James is because she showed up at the Royal Rumble, so maybe they're at the very least familiar. They don't know who Diamond Dallas Page is. They don't know who DDP is. They just don't. They don't. Oh, he's the guy who was stalking Undertaker's wife. Yeah, there you go. For some reason, Chelsea Green shows up in the VIP room and everyone thinks she smells. I'm like, what the fuck is this? And then, oh, she was in a dumpster match last night. Motherfucker, she didn't wash? She didn't take a shower? What are we doing here? Like, this is not, yeah, it's not for me. It's dumb. Liv Morgan retained her WWE Women's World title. No, so she retained it, yes, despite the fact that Rhea Ripley defeated her via disqualification with the shark match gimmick. This stunk. This was just bad. It's a 2-star match for me. I thought this. There was a time where in this match where I thought they were actually working and there was stuff going on. There were hitting moves, and I was like, okay, we got something going here. But then, of course, everything stands in the way in WWE of letting people having good matches. Again, I am zero invested in this feud, and you know, in this storyline, and I would be even less invested. No, let me say that again. And I wonder, would I be more invested in this match if I did follow the feud on the regular? Because I feel this whole feud is nonsense. I feel the whole thing is kind of like trash. You know, they put Dominic in the cage. They don't suspend him over the ring. He's over the ramp. And at some point he opens the cage. Like, the cage door just opens. I'm like, how? How did he open it? Oh, did he learn this? Did he learn this trick while he was in prison? It's like, no. That actually doesn't make sense. Maybe he learned it before going to prison, but anyway. And then Dominic falls out of the cage, but he's suspended by a thing. Like there's like a cable, a rope, something latched around his ankle that he's tangled up in that made him fall out of the cage. That I don't know if it made him fall out of the cage, but he fell out of the cage and he was suspended then from the cage. Anyway, you all saw it. And I was like, what is this? This is dumb. Isn't this just dumb? And people clapping, Dominic. But it's dumb. It doesn't. I don't understand what's going on. This is the thing where WWE had an opportunity to do this. They're like, hey, we could have him suspended from the cage thanks to this, you know, stunt gimmickry. And Triple H is like, let's do it. Well, how do we explain it? It doesn't matter. Like, it's such a Vince thing where Vince is like, this is great shit, pal. I'm telling you, look, people keep telling me, you know, how this new era of Triple H is so different and innovative. I still don't see it. It's just like, it's same old, same old. And it's like I told you from the get-go, Triple H did not learn to book anywhere else than in WWE, and watching Vince do it. I don't know why everyone thought there would be this great change They all thought because of how, NXT Black and Gold was being booked. But main roster, same old stuff. And then Raquel Rodriguez runs back from injury. And she attacks Rhea, but right in front of the ref, and the ref calls for the DQ. Now, apparently, it's been reported that from Fightful actually, saying that the original plan was for Liv to win the match because of Raquel, but not via DQ. And essentially the finish was botched because everything happened in front of the ref, and the ref was like, ding, ding, ding. This is what the Fightful Select report said. It was implied that the original finish to Rhea versus Liv was Liv winning with Raquel's help. However, the referee couldn't justify not doing a DQ finish as he saw everything unfold. Good for the ref. Good on the ref for doing that. I mean, they tell the refs, call it like a shoot. So, the ref did what he had to do, and it was maybe Raquel missed her spot where she was supposed to wait for something to have the ref distracted or whatever, and she just flubbed it. But she does it in front of the ref, so the ref goes, okay, well, we're done. Anyway, what a stinker of a finish. Yuck. And Raquel Rodriguez is going to be, this is what we're moving on. Raquel Rodriguez, who is a stiff, another member of the WWE roster that I don't understand what they bring to the table. Maybe now if she's a heel though, she won't be smiling Raquel anymore and showing off her back dimples anymore. So that's only an upgrade. That is an upgrade. And the main event had Cody Rhodes. Am I forgetting something? Hang on. Oh no, wait. There's the anonymous tease of the Motor City Machine Guns coming to WWE. Everyone's kind of figured that one out. Let's move on to the main event. Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns defeated the bloodline duo of Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu. My God, there's a lot of posturing at the start of this match. So much of it where I'm like, oh my God, can we just fucking wrestle? It takes so long. And Roman Reigns is babyface in peril for the first part of this match. Cody gets the hot tag that is ended with a Jacob Fatu landing a Samoan drop, and they get another control segment on Cody, who becomes the babyface in peril, and we get nerve holds, folks. We get nerve holds. That's the thing that modern day wrestling was lacking, has been lacking. Nerve holds. Finally, a hot tag by Roman Reigns. There's a barricade spot, take a shot. Cody and Fatu fight on the floor. Big splash from Cody off the ring post through the commentary table onto Fatu, which was a tremendous spot. That was really cool. But anyway, again, this is another match where you're just waiting for the interference to happen, and it does. Guerrillas of Destiny run in, but then Jimmy Uso shows up in a hoodie and hiding his face to attack the Tongans, and people pop, and then Roman spears Solo and gets the win, and Jimmy and Roman hug, and remember Cody Rhodes? Yeah, he's in this match too. He's in the corner watching all of this happen, and there's a bit of a stare down, and Cody and Jimmy leave, and then the Bloodline attack Cody, and then Roman has a crisis of conscience, and then he decides to go help Cody along with Jimmy, who kind of egged him on, I guess. So the bitter enemies still stand tall against a common enemy, I guess. And yeah. So yeah, and I'm looking at all this, and I'm like, man, and it's just the truth here. You can warp this any which way. Roman just feels like a bigger deal than Cody. Cody feels little broed in this type of situation, and this was all about Roman. This angle was all about Roman. Didn't have much to do with Cody doing, trying to get some measure of revenge. Like, there's nothing here. There's nothing. It's just Roman. It was all about Roman. And then you look, you thought the little broing of Cody was harsh. Then The Rock comes out. And he doesn't jump in the ring, but boy, oh boy, does Cody feel overshadowed by these two guys. And that's just the fact. And look, I've talked about it before. I think Cody's reign as undisputed universal world, universal competition champion hasn't been as hot as a lot of people would like you to think it is. I don't think people are all that into it. I think Cody's like his dad. The money's in the chase. It's not wearing the championship. It's hunting the belt down. I think that's just reality at this point. So, good for Cody, good for Roman for winning the match, but ultimately, good for them, right? But ultimately, you see all of these parts coming together, and it's like, man, Cody's little bro here. And, I think he's a great spokesperson. I think he does his job well as a representative of the company. He's a great company guy. But you got Roman Reigns there. You got The Rock there. Ugh. It's a rough one. The Rock overshadows everyone, don't get me wrong. Huge pop for Rock, too, who just came out, did some hand gestures, and left. That's all. And the match was extremely passable, 3 stars. Anyway, that was Bad Blood. If you got a half hour to spare, I think CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre is worth your while, especially if you are part of that this contingent of wrestling fans who believe that Hell in a Cell has been, devalued and isn't worth anything. CM Punk said he wanted to bring it back, wanted to make it feel special again. Well, it did. It did. And if this is a kickoff point for, first of all, ending the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, I think that was a tremendous idea, and that will help. And if we keep getting matches, sporadic, rare matches like this for Hell in a Cell, like the type Drew and CM Punk did, I don't have a problem with it. I think it's only gonna help the mystique. It's gonna bring the mystique back. I'm okay with it. So, but outside of that, this is a completely forgettable show. You can 100% skip that. And get hyped for Crown Jewel, I guess. There's a new belt. I don't know. There you go. Bad Blood 2024. That's my review. Should we do some contract news and stuff? I think we should. Let's start with this little tidbit here that came up on the old whatchamacallit. On the old thingy. Wrestle Purists. There you go. That's what I was trying to pronounce with incredible amounts, unreasonable amounts of difficulty. Bobby Lashley has apparently, and this is a report, has apparently signed with AEW and his debut is impending. Lashley, MVP, and Shelton Benjamin have all nailed down their deals a number of weeks ago. And apparently, Lashley's done. So he will be showing up sometime soon. And of course, that's a report from Fightful Select. Do what you may. Do what you may with that report. But I think the safe money is that he is indeed on the way. We got to be realistic about this, folks. I mean, that's just how it's happening right now. It's just Bobby Lashley's going to AEW. That's inevitable at this point. I think we all saw the writing in the sky when MVP showed up, and I don't know how to feel. Look, my position still hasn't changed. I don't know how to feel about it. I am not personally excited. to have Bobby Lashley in AEW. I've been over these points. I've talked about his age. I've talked about, what his return can be with the amount of money Tony is likely throwing at him and his pals, and the amount of money that he's going to get is probably kind of insane for a guy who has never moved a metric. Like, he's never been a needle mover in any way, shape, or form, Like, I'm sure that when Hall of Fame season rolls around, no one is going to be making a case for the Bobby Lashley induction into the let's say the Observer Hall of Fame. No one is even considering making Bobby Lashley putting him on the ballot, because he doesn't have anything to back it up. Now, is he a physical specimen? Yes. Like, he's one of these guys where, I like to usually say, like, when there were rumors, for instance, when Sheamus was rumored to be maybe, a free agent and whatnot. I was like, you're AEW, you bring him in, you kick the tires on him, right? You try him out. A guy like Sheamus and a guy like Bobby Lashley, look at him. Like, of course, that would be, if you had the opportunity to bring him in and you're the booker and you had the opportunity to bring him in just to try him out, that would be booking malpractice if you didn't. You'd lose your booker credentials. You'd lose your access to the club. That's absolutely the thing. But at the same time, you look at how everything is set up, and Lashley's been for so long in WWE. Like, I don't know what he has to offer. I don't understand. Is the idea of a feud with Shane Strickland exciting, compelling enough to get people to watch? I don't know. So, like I said last time, I don't hate the idea, but I'm very much on an Adam Copeland level when he was announced that he was going to come into AEW, right? Where I was just holding my breath. Right? I'm not sure this is a great call. We'll see what happens. I am leaving myself open to be surprised and entertained, because MVP right now, he's a very compelling voice so far. I think what he's been doing is good and intriguing because it's MVP. Will that be able to carry over into this entire stable that they're reforming? I'm still going to leave I still have reservations for 7. We need to get going. Ha ha, jokes. We'll see how this goes down. Remember Daniel Garcia? Yeah, it turns out, apparently he had taken out the mention of AEW in his bio, and now it would appear that it has returned to his bio, alleviating some anxieties that a few people had. I'm not gonna keep myself out of this picture here. I had my anxieties. Like, what? I was ready to, and still am, because we haven't heard that he's resigned. He hasn't been on AEW television yet. So, who knows what's going to happen? I mean, is it a good sign? I'd say it's probably a good sign. I mean, I think it's a good sign that he might be sticking around. Doesn't mean he's staying with AEW. He could just really like Collision. To that degree, to the degree of doing this, of doing a little emoji thingy. I guess maybe, I don't know. Who knows? I couldn't. I think Garcia. I think that AEW has to do what they can to hang on to Garcia, and if he's staying, that's good news. Of course, this is not a report, anything. This is, there's not even any legitimate rumors to that effect, but we'll keep an eye on it, of course, because we are on Garcia watch here. If we weren't on Garcia watch, we just let that slip by. But no, folks, we are on Garcia watch. We got to keep an eye on this stuff. Diamond Dallas Page has apparently signed a WWE Legends deal. He says he signed his after Bad Blood on Saturday. The WWE Hall of Famer was one of several legends from the Atlanta area who attended Saturday's show. I'm reading this article off of The Observer, of course. He was shown on camera along with Mickie James and Scott Steiner. Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson were also on hand for the event. DDP took to social media after the show and thanked WWE for giving the legends ultimate respect and kindness from everyone. Ultimate. He said that as a WCW wrestler, he never felt truly welcome in WWE, but that was not how he felt last night. No, because everyone's gone. It's like, all the people who had an issue with you being in WWE, all of these people are gone. So, of course, you felt welcome last night or at Bad Blood. Last night, WWE Bad Blood was one of the first pay-per-views I really enjoyed from beginning to end. Oh, he hasn't learned the lingo yet. Oh, do you think he gets fined? He gets money docked from his contract every time he uses uses the antiquated lingo. Those are premium live events, Diamond. Those are PLEs, Dallas. Got to the building early to spend some quality time with Cody Rhodes, but he was so busy. It's something we'll have to do at a later date. WWE actually had all of the legends pretty busy as well. I want to thank Paul Levesque, aka at Triple H. We don't need to do that. For a hell of a time with him at helm of creative, along with the new owners of TKA Group. I personally had one of my favorite times at a WWE event, knowing my Hall of Fame career was made in WCW. Regardless of how many close friends I had there at WWE, I never felt totally welcome. Last night was different. When I got home tonight, I signed my Legends deal and sent it in. It was very laid back and fun to be around, just hanging out and having some laughs. The entire WWE crew did a hell of a job. I mean, if you're going to just lock me down in a contract so you can use my likeness and have me pop up for, promotional events and stuff like that, yeah, I'm going to go to, and it better fucking be laid back. You know what I mean? The legends weren't just seen as guys and girls who used to be wrestlers last night. We were seen as true legends, superstars from the past that paved the way. Treated with the ultimate respect and kindness from everyone, which I believe is all we're really looking for. We love what we did and we're extremely proud of it. Many of us are beaten and broken, but we wouldn't have had it any other way. Thank you, WWE, for changing the atmosphere. And I'd also like to thank all the WWE superstars for their time and kindness. Good for Diamond Dallas. Got himself some nice pictures here. Got one with a couple of fans here. Who's this dude? Like, legitimately, I don't know who this dude is. That Jade's, like, his arm is reaching all the... That's a really long arm he's got, right? Like, all the way over to Dallas. It's like Jade's in the way kind of thing. Look, there he is again. Am I supposed to know who this dude is? I don't know how many people really knew who Diamond Dallas Page was in the audience. You'll notice he didn't talk about the audience. He talked about the superstars. He talked about, that's the thing. It's like I look back at, I was looking at him. It's like, nobody knows who Tully Blanchard is. They know who Arn is because Arn was doing things on AEW. So they were like, right? That's Miss Soul. And I'm not sure all that many people in that audience knew who DDP was either. Because the Fed never made it a thing for him to be like a thing. What a picture. Look at all these grizzled vets. That covers the big news in regards to contracts. Let's talk some health updates here. AJ Styles apparently is injured again. He suffered a legit leg injury, I believe, on his return match on SmackDown against Carmelo Hayes. The injury AJ Styles suffered on WWE SmackDown was not part of a storyline. Styles appeared to injure his ankle mid-match against Carmelo Hayes on Friday night, which eventually led to the match being stopped early. Initially, it was reported that this was part of a storyline and that Styles was fine. However, our Dave Meltzer reports the injury is legitimate and Styles will undergo further testing to determine its severity. This is Dave's quote from the Daily Update. The AJ Styles injury on Friday was legit and not part of a storyline. He's getting an MRI to assess the severity of it. On Saturday, Jackie Redmond reported that Styles suffered a mid-foot ligament sprain, as we saw in the tweet. And Sean Ross Sapp would add, people in WWE claimed this to me today regarding AJ Styles. Quote, the flip where he sold the knee was to be a work. The move where he landed on the knee was legit. Sean says he doesn't have much of a follow-up besides that. Meltzer also writes that other injuries being sold at Bad Blood were part of storylines. The Bayley knee injury and the Drew McIntyre back injury, of course. Of course. Styles versus Hayes on SmackDown was Styles' first match on WWE programming since Clash at the Castle in June. However, since then, he has wrestled on house shows on the European Tour in August and once for Pro Wrestling Noah at Destination 2024. So yeah, that kind of sucks, right? You're coming back, and he wasn't injured before that, but you know, it kind of sucks. And you're back and you blow your leg out, and you know, Carmelo Hayes was probably really excited at the prospect of feuding with AJ Styles. Right? That like, for a guy like Hayes, Carmelo, not me, that would have been a tremendous opportunity for him. And I'm sure he's really bummed. Honestly, it kind of sucks for him too. So I hope AJ gets some encouraging news soon, and that it's not too serious, and that he can get back to doing what he does very soon. More health updates. Braun Strowman says he tore his groin during the Last Man Monster Standing match on Raw last week. On Instagram, Strowman shared a video of his injured groin. See, and that's the thing that we're not going to watch on my live stream. You sickos can go check that out if you want to see a man showing off his torn groin. You're just mosey on over to your Insta account, you know, and scroll through all the Instagram models you follow. We're not doing this here. This is not a family activity. Watching men show off their groins. Not here. He shared a video of his injured groin as he wrote how he injured it 2 minutes into the match against Bronson Reed. After waiting for a few days to see how this was going to end up, this is where we're at. Whatever. I tore my groin 2 minutes into the last Monster Standing match. Pained my way through it. Through that son of a beep. To yet again reminded the world that I am the whatever. He starts hyping himself up. Strowman ended up winning the match after Seth Rollins, who put Reed out of action, made his return to Raw by giving Reed a curb stomp onto the steel steps that were inside the ring. This allowed Strowman to rise to his feet, meaning the 10 count and winning the match. Does he show the full fruit basket? I don't know. Why are you putting these thoughts in my mind? There's certain things I don't want to think about. How long before a torn groin heals? 12 to 16 weeks, depending on the severity of the tear. A tear to the mid-belly of the muscle will typically take between 4 and 12 weeks, depending on the severity of the tear. He legitimately just came back from injury, right? Like 3 weeks ago, a month ago, tops. That sucks. That's bad news. But is Braun falling apart? Is he just coming undone? Because he's been plagued with injuries pretty much all throughout his career, right? Like, this isn't new, right? I think Braun Strongman is falling apart. He's coming apart at the seams. He's like Sally in the Nightmare Before Christmas. Oh, how topical. How topical a comparison. I'm just on top of things, aren't I? Drew McIntyre shared images of his head injury suffered at Bad Blood. Drew McIntyre suffered a significant head laceration during his Hell in a Cell match with CM Punk at WWE Bad Blood. McIntyre posted photos of the match on his X account on Sunday, including one of the staples needed to close the wound. I don't think I can show the images on Twitter and on YouTube, I mean. But I'm pretty sure you have all seen them by now. It's a pretty gruesome look, and he would have received that laceration upon getting crowned by CM Punk using the toolbox, right? That's where it all would have come crashing down and hurt inside. Excuse me. No, it was a pretty significant injury. Like, I was surprised at how much, I remember, and even in the review, when I did the Bad Blood review, I said, who knew Drew was such a bleeder, right? Like, who knew he was because he was gushing. That was incredible. And I was like, why have you been keeping this from us all this time, Drew? Right? But the thing that I find curious, the thing that I find unique, it's funny, I'm not seeing any of the safety police coming out, calling any of this unsafe. I haven't seen anyone rise to the barricades and rise up against the barricades and complain, wag their finger, saying this should not happen. No unprotected shots to the head. This was a toolkit. It wasn't a gimmicked chair. It was a legitimate toolkit. Shouldn't be doing that. Split all the way down the head. Staples. You can't just super glue that one or whatever the fuck they use to close up wounds. You got to put in the big old surgical staples. You got ka-chunk, ka-chunk, ka-chunk. Drew got massive. He got a nasty cut there. He got hurt. And yet, I'm not seeing any thought pieces on how unsafe WWE is. I'm not hearing podcasters rattle the cages, screaming at the top of their lungs at how, inconsiderate and won't they think about the talent? And someone's got to put a stop to this. And the sponsors are going to go away. And they have to reel this in. And what about concussions? Is this a bad example for kids? I'm not seeing anything of that. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that just special? You swear. Like at sorry, Brian. You swear that at the All In show that Swerve and Paige, with how people were reacting to it, it seemed like those two guys had initiated right then and there the collapse of modern civilization. And besides, every time there's some blood on AEW programming, you get the same old tired discourse, and it's just so boring and old. The same old thing, same old reactions. And here, Drew gets busted up hard way and putting the hard in hard way. Capital H. Oh, but no one's complaining about that though. Oh, no, it was a good match. See? So, it's not ballet. People get hurt sometimes. Accidents happen. This is different, right? Was it an unprotected shot to the head? Yeah, but it was an accident. It's not a big deal. These people become more and more transparent every day. Every single day. The defenses they used to have are all just crumbling down, and they're looking like goofs, just complete and utter goofs, unlike me, where I look cool and savvy. That's right. Cool and savvy. Not just one, both. Still talking about the some health updates. Taz is going to undergo total knee replacement surgery. This week, AEW started an angle where Taz was attacked by a mystery assailant in the parking lot before Dynamite. Nigel McGuinness replaced him on commentary and called the episode with Excalibur and Tony Schiavone. Dave Meltzer reported in the Wrestling Observer newsletter that the angle was done as a cover because Taz is undergoing total knee replacement surgery. Taz then confirmed that news in a tweet. He said, quote, "Unfortunately, I will be out for a while. I'll be having total knee replacement surgery very soon. Talk to you guys down the road." So you know what that means? That means he can wrestle again. I mean, that's causation right there. Oh, he's getting his knees replaced. It's his knees that kept him from wrestling. Okay, fine. Now he can wrestle again. Good. We'll finally be able to get Taz back in the ring. Versus Daniel Garcia. Winner gets to wear the towel over the head. Taz 56 said the issues were not from bumps he took in the ring, but were instead caused by training too heavy with weights during his career. He urged younger wrestlers to be smarter than he was and said the industry has changed for the better. Well, yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of things in regards to sports health that have changed like dramatically since the 90s. Like, we thankfully are no longer plagued. For instance, we are no longer plagued with wrestlers dying way too young, which was a systematic thing in the 90s and the 2000s. All the guys who came up in that period, working all the dates, no one really looking after themselves, just taking pills, mixing it with alcohol, with illicit drugs. It was just a horrible time. Now the advances that we've made, the understandings that we have in medical science in general, it helps a lot of these guys and gals make better decisions in that regard than they did back in the day. So yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense for Taz here to be like, yeah, don't be a dumbass. Don't go as hard as I did, and they probably don't have to anymore, right? So, I mean, good if he's at a spot where he needs to get the surgery done. Good for him. I'm sure he'll be back on his feet real soon. We've got one more item on the health update. Just a very quick final one. Keith Lee, according to Fightful Select, apparently because people keep asking, where's Keith Lee? Where's Keith Lee? Fightful Select reported that Keith Lee has yet to be cleared for a return to action due to an undisclosed medical issue. So we still don't know exactly what the situation here is, but sounds severe, and I hope he gets back on his feet. I hope things work out for the best for old Keith Lee, a gentleman, a good guy, and someone that I think arguably, I think it's someone we all miss. So we do hope that he's okay. Yeah, the COVID scare was a little intense. So hopefully he'll be able to get back to his feet. So that was our bit on the contracts and health updates in the world of wrestling. We've got some shows to preview. Should we preview some shows? We got two big shows happening this weekend in the big world of international professional wrestling. Let's start with AEW WrestleDream. That is going to kick off this weekend, October 12th. Saturday, folks. Another Saturday pay-per-view from the Tacoma Dome in where? Tacoma, Washington. So we are back for another WrestleDream show this year. As you recall, the inaugural was last year, right? At the beginning of October, and it happened on the 1-year anniversary of Antonio Inoki's passing, and will always have to me one of the greatest unsung moments of the history of AEW, when Inoki's grandkids are in the ring and Tony is like in the pre-show, and Tony is interacting with them and they're exchanging gifts, and suddenly the camera cuts to Christian Cage watching this on a monitor backstage, and then clips immediately back to whatever's going on in the ring. To this day, I think it is one of the greatest things that AEW has ever done. It is fantastic. And yes, chat, you are correct. It is kind of crazy to think that it's been 2 years already since Antonio Inoki is no longer with us. But nonetheless, the point I was trying to make ultimately is that, the name of the event is a reference to Inoki. Tony Khan called him wrestling's greatest dreamer. And that's where we're at. We're continuing down the dream. Has nothing to do with Inoki or New Japan as far as we know. No. This is an AEW show. Now, I am recording this on Monday, October the 7th. So we are almost guaranteed, even though we are, 6 days away from the show, that the entirety of the card has not been announced. So there is probably stuff that is, that I am not going to speak of here, but that will later appear. Of course, the show was main evented by Bryan Danielson taking on Jon Moxley for the AEW World Championship. Chad, I'd love to know what you think about the card so far in the matches and whatnot. Please feel free to share. And if you're watching this afterwards, do feel free to share your own thoughts in the comments. Is this going to be Bryan Danielson's? I'm going to call him Daniel Bryan. What's wrong with me? Is this going to be Bryan Danielson's last match in AEW? Is this going to be his retirement match? Because don't forget, Danielson said that he is going to continue wrestling as long as he still has the title. Now, one would say, oh, isn't this kind of too soon to do it, right? Isn't it? Aren't we coming up a little too strong here? Mayhaps, but at the same time, there's one thing that Danielson in the build-up to All Out, when he was just like doing his best to blur the lines and augment the anxiety that people had about the card, about Danielson losing, about all the usual anxieties that you get from from Bryan Danielson wrestling in a high pressure, high octane match. People were saying, well, Danielson, not people, but Danielson was saying himself, amidst, oh, well, my daughter, oh, I want to go spend time with my family. He was saying, I'm going to need neck surgery by the end of the year. And we were all sort of going, sort of, sure, Brian, sure you do. But assuming that it is true, right? Because he did win the title. So from this point on, it's like everything's fair game. Could you have a better way to be just like written off television than to have Jon Moxley, his partner in AEW for the longest time, the BCC and everything that it stood for, for a long stretch of both of these guys, AEW runs, Danielson and Mox are indissociable. So you get to this point here, you're like, well, maybe if the thing about the neck surgery is true, and you got your perfect escape here, you have you're perfect out for Danielson to just hit the bricks and disappear from TV for whatever time he needs, because he's going to be retired. Because technically this will be his last match he'd be wrestling. And who would be a better candidate to do that than Mox? And beat him within an inch of his life, convincingly. Because the other thing here is that Mox right now, once again, is one of the most, if not the he's the most interesting thing on AEW television right now. As far as intrigue, building something, creating something, his promos, his presence, what he's been doing. He seems motivated. He's into it. He seems to be enjoying what he's doing, and it bleeds into how he speaks, how he holds himself, his promos, the content of his promos. He's back to this level of dangerous Mox where you're like, this man, you were to tell me this was the most dangerous person on the planet, and I would believe you, without any doubt. This is where he's at right now. He's doing tremendous work. So, do you pull the trigger on it? Is this where you do it? You do it right here and now? Maybe not. Maybe you do. Do you have Danielson win here and stretch this out to Full Gear and have the feud come to a head with some kind of wacky stipulation in which Mox just completely obliterates Danielson, which is also a possibility. I think there's patterns in Tony's booking where he will give us a big match, but the big match will leave will not necessarily be the end of the feud, and we'll come back with a bigger stipulation, and one that might be a little more violent, that might involve a little more blood, and both guys might just go at it like that. I think that's also a possibility. I think a match like this, and we talked about this recently. I think that two guys in this going into this match, right? Seasoned veterans, great wrestlers, expert storytellers, both of them. I think the floor to this match is great. I think it's fair to expect a great match here. And if it's anything less, I think be okay to be a little disappointed. You can still call the match very good because it was a good time, but I think the floor is a little high here. And ultimately that's what I'm expecting. As for the result, I think you can make the argument both ways, just like I did. You can have Danielson retain and the feud must go on till Full Gear, where it continues to simmer and boil, or you just straight up have Danielson lose here, and it would also make complete sense. I think those are two absolute possibilities. Now, like I talked about on the Dynamite review last week, there's this situation, of course, that's starting to linger around above, I should say, this entire feud, where the question is, Mox sort of implying that he's doing all of these things for someone, for a reason. And, is this someone Shane McMahon, for instance? That's the name that popped into everyone's head, with both, with a combination of surprise and deep contemplation as to whether that's a good idea or not. I'm interested, but also not. It's weird. This is another situation where I don't know what Shane McMahon brings to the table, and I don't know why we're so hell-bent on making this little WWE at the same time. But look, that's a discussion for another time, and I've already talked a bit about it on the Dynamite review, and I'm going to save it until Shane McMahon shows up. I'm not going to waste too much breath on whether Shane McMahon is going to be a good thing for AEW or not until Shane McMahon shows up. Until then, it's just a lot of wind. But, I also understand the trepidation in that regard because, Shane running into Tony Khan at an airport, okay, seems fishy, but I can accept the coincidence. Shane McMahon running into the Bucks at an airport now. Now there's seems like there's a little more smoke to that fire. At first, it was like no way they'd have him drop the belt so quick, but it would explain why they rushed the title, why they rushed the Mox title match, and hurried to put on Danielson versus Nigel ASAP. Yeah, I don't feel like the Danielson Mox match is rushed. I think that the defenses in the meantime are rushed. The Nigel match, the Okada match, I think those are rushed. But I don't know if the Danielson Mox match is rushed. We come out of the pay-per-view, we set up another challenger, and it's his former best friend. Makes a lot of, you go for that at the pay-per-view. It makes a lot of sense. I don't know if I would have booked that differently, but I will agree that the defenses in between do feel a little precipitous. Look who's been reading his thesaurus recently. Moving on. Mariah May will be defending the AEW Women's World Championship versus Dr. Britt Baker or Willow Nightingale because they being Britt and Willow, will be facing each other in a number one contenders match on Title Tuesday, which is going to be, by the time most of you are listening to this, it will probably have passed on. Can I drop a prediction? Perhaps. I think she's going to be defending the title against Willow Nightingale. I think they're not quite ready for Britt. I think once they're going to warm up Britt more than this. They're not doing Britt Baker just yet to lose to Mariah. No, they're not. Willow has this bulletproofness about her that she remains over regardless. And I think that's what they're going to do with it. But I will say that the Chris Statlander turn, babyface turn, dumping Stokely, out of nowhere, that's bullshit. That is poor storytelling. We've just been invested in this feud and in this heel Chris Statlander for months at this point. And now suddenly it's just like disappeared. No, that's a lot of that's a lot of hooey. That's what that is. It's trash. It's garbage. It's bad storytelling. It's really, really bad. I don't know what the hard reset is for. I really don't. And everyone who was observing this, the heel turn, agreed that this was a good thing for Statlander. And I think it worked for her. I think the heel turn worked. It's garbage. Like Chad is saying, it's not just bad storytelling, it's anti-storytelling. That's exactly what it is. The Young Bucks will be defending the AEW World Tag Team titles against Private Party. I said my piece in that regard on the Dynamite review on Thursday. If you didn't listen to the review last week, what's wrong with you? But I will, to give you the cliff notes, I did not understand how Private Party, who has spent the better part of the year just being irrelevant, not doing anything. I understand that there was injuries and so forth, but nonetheless, they weren't doing anything. And then over the past month, have just been consistently geeked out to Mox's new group. I don't know why. Suddenly they were hoisted into the position where they could be like, they could grab a microphone and say, hey, we want to challenge for the World Tag Team titles because we're a Private Party and you're not, or some kind of thing. And I didn't understand it, and I thought that was bullshit too. And I thought that was terrible storytelling, and that's why you need rankings. That's why you needed the rankings. The rankings back in the day would not have let this happen, or at least we would have seen it coming. They would have been heated up properly, right? They would have had them have a series of wins, or they would have had other dudes lose, whatever the hell. But it just wouldn't come out of nowhere. This is why, again, I said it on Thursday, I'll say it here again. This is why, since they've dropped the rankings and, the one thing that really helped distinguish themselves, AEW, from WWE, the getting rid of that one thing, now they're exactly like WWE when it comes to these types of situations. Now everyone gets a turn. Now, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you spend the last 2 months losing, that you're on the, you're on the losing end of things. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You're just, if it's your turn up, it's your turn up to bat. It's just as simple as that. I can't endorse this. It's bad. It's just bad. It's bad. Is this going to be a good match? Listen, the Jacksons seem to be on a roll when it comes to let's be a good tag team again. They had a great match with Claudio and Yuta. They had a great match on Dynamite recently as well. In the trios match with Okada. They're on a roll, and they've been looking good. You started to see the Bucks of old again. So this will essentially be on Private Party. Can the Bucks make sure that Private Party are up to their level, that they won't be sloppy, we'll see. But I have a lot more confidence in these Jacksons than I did a couple of months ago. So we'll keep an eye on that. Will Ospreay is going to be defending the International Championship versus Ricochet and Konosuke Takeshita. This is probably going to be match of the night. Even though I'm not particularly enchanted at the idea of a title match in a 3-man situation, I would much prefer a singles match with Ricochet and a singles match with Takeshita. Hell, I would even like a singles match with Ricochet versus Takeshita. Sort of mix it up a little bit, but yeah, again, you ain't got the rankings. It doesn't matter. Just slap anyone you want together. It doesn't matter. Everyone gets a turn now. I don't know how you do this. This is interesting. Does Will hold on to the title, and who does he pin? Is Takeshita in here to take the pin because we want to protect Ricochet for a bit? Is he still fresh off the bus? Or is it the opposite? Is Takeshita there so that Ricochet can pin him without pinning Will Ospreay, which would also be interesting. Maybe this is where we're going to get the great Ricochet match. Look, he went to Japan this weekend to wrestle in GLEAT, which is a promotion that doesn't exist. But nonetheless, he went there, wrestled with Shima. Again, a promotion that doesn't exist. But maybe by going to GLEAT, he comes back and he's rediscovered a little spark, maybe a little something that was missing to his post WWE presentation. Maybe he's got it now. Maybe we're on our way now. Honestly, I don't see Will losing, but the circumstances are there for Will to drop the title without being pinned. Jack Perry is defending the TNT Championship against Katsuyori Shibata. Sure. Okie doke. I can't believe that one of my favorite wrestlers is in this match. Shibata, by the way. And I'm sort of shrugging and sure, whatever. This is a guy, when he returned to wrestle, when he did that stupid exhibition match, well, I say stupid, but when he did that exhibition match with Ren Narita a couple of years ago, I had water pouring down my face. I was crying with joy. Yeah, wrestling made me cry with joy at the thought of Katsuyori Shibata coming back to wrestle. Now I'm like, oh, he's just another guy. Darby Allin versus Brody King. Brody King answering the Darby Allin Open Challenge. That's going to rule. It's going to be a hell of a good time. Mark Briscoe versus Chris Jericho for the Ring of Honor Championship. My outstanding theory right now is that Chris Jericho is officially washed. If he can't muster up a good match against Mark Briscoe, that will be proof. Let's see if he proves my theory right or not. And they're bringing in Ring of Honor World TV Champion Atlantis Jr. to defend the title against Brian Cage. I love Atlantis Jr. I think he's great. Brian Cage has experience working with luchadors. He's a fantastic base. This should be a blast. Not enough Beast Mortos on this card so far. I just want to point that out. Not enough Beast Mortos. Not enough hologram. Like on paper, quite frankly, this has the potential to be a sneaky great card, but I think it's going to be a good show. Maybe not a great show, but I think it's going to be a good show. But it has the potential to be great. Just depends if everyone shows up to work. But of course, next week I will have the full review. Let's preview New Japan Pro Wrestling's King of Pro Wrestling card, which is also happening this weekend, October 14. It's actually on Monday, right? Yeah, it's not even on the weekend. It's next week, next Monday, October 14, at the Ryogoku Kokugan in Tokyo, Japan. This is a card I am legitimately excited for. I think this is a solid card. I think this is a true to form, solid, exciting, well booked, well put together, intriguing card. And it's only been 2 weeks since the last show. But this King of Pro Wrestling show, man, there is a lot going on it. There's a lot of stuff that's been really well set up, and that's going to be leading into, of course, Wrestle Kingdom. Like this is one of the last big stops before Wrestle Kingdom. And man, I'm looking at it. I saw the card come together, and I was like, okay, honestly, everything kind of rocks here. I'm saying, WrestleDream has the potential to be a good card, but maybe not great. I think this has the potential to be a great card. Like I think it should be a great card. This is what it should be. So let's break it down. Let's take a look at it. Tetsuya Naito defending the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship against Zack Sabre Jr. Of course, this is Zack Sabre Jr. Cashing in. I hate the expression, apologies, but it is the easiest reference for everyone to understand. Cashing in his G1 win. He doesn't want to wait to Wrestle Kingdom, right? Usually that's the thing. You win the opportunity to main event the Dome. So you sort of wait till Wrestle Kingdom, but no, he was like, nah, I'm gonna do this before breaking all the rules. I am Zack Sabre Jr. Fuck the Tories. I'm going to be challenging Tetsuya Naito before the Wrestle Kingdom. We're gonna do it at King of Pro Wrestling, and this sort of threw a wrench into everyone's expectations and how this was gonna go. So this is very intriguing. It's very, very, very intriguing. At first, I think a lot of people saw this and figured, oh, they don't have faith in Zack. They just don't have faith in Zack. That's just how it goes. They don't have faith in him in being a draw for the Tokyo Dome, and they're gonna have him, win the title or whatever, and maybe he might even lose it on the way back to Wrestle Kingdom. They might put it back on Naito before we get to Wrestle Kingdom and so on, right? But legitimately, as I like to point out often, right? They don't have faith in Zack, so they're not putting him in the, they're not ensuring that he's going to be in the main event. They're going to keep it a little more dynamic. Who else do they have faith in as a draw? They being New Japan. If not Zack, okay? Who else? Who should be in the spot as a main eventer in the Tokyo Dome? And I spoke about this on my review of the Destruction in Kobe show. Tetsuya Naito is the only draw they have left. The only legitimate proven draw. A guy that you can point directly to data and say, this show had this attendance because Naito was on it. This show had this attendance because he didn't merge sales, so on and so forth. Naito is still an extremely popular figure. He still draws tons of money, and they don't have that next gen draw right now. So you put Tetsuya Naito in the dome. You need him to do that, right? I legitimately believe that they need him to be in the dome for that. Who's the other opponent if not Zack? Who else on the card could you point to and say, this is the only other guy who makes sense? There's no one really. So if you're going with Zack, who at the very least, if his record as a draw is completely unproven, at the very least, he's a known commodity from the New Japan audience. They're very familiar with him. He's very well liked, and you know he's got something. Like, people love the Zack Sabre Jr. and you saw it all throughout the G1. And if there was ever a time to put him in the main event of the Tokyo Dome, it was this year. But quite frankly, the drawing power of the Wrestle Kingdom show this year entirely rests on the shoulders of Tetsuya Naito. No matter who else you'd put in there. It doesn't matter who else you put in there. Who is on this roster today. Dave Finlay? You know, Great O'Khan? Like Yota Tsuji? Who might be the closest to maybe starting to build a case that this guy has the connection. He's maybe. Like, there's no one else. So I understand the concern that some folks have in saying, well, they don't have faith in Zack Sabre Jr., but I don't even think it's a question of that. I think it's a question of Zack going in as champion at Wrestle Kingdom, which is a good thing, and then having Naito be the challenger. There's always something more interesting in Tetsuya Naito challenging for titles than being the champion. Always. Now, does he win? Does he lose? Let's have this talk when we have to preview Wrestle Kingdom. Might even have a pal on to chat it up. But as it stands right now, I think Zack is going to win. I think Zack is winning. And I think you can point directly to the Royal Quest show in 2 weeks after this over in the UK, where he's fighting Sonata, which is right now a special singles match, but you know what this is. When they announced that match, I felt like they telegraphed the King of Pro Wrestling main event result. I really think they did. So they come in here and they come into Royal Quest, and Zack has to have the title, has to have the homecoming. They're going to pack, unless the place is already sold out, they're going to pack up whatever's left. And Sonata's he's a nice little defense, former champion, but, has fallen way down the ranks. And it'll be fine. Who is your co-main eventer? Now, your assured draw. Who is it? There's no one else. So Naito drops the title this weekend. It's Monday, I should say. And I think Zack holds on to it right into Wrestle Kingdom, where he probably will. The conventional logic is that we finally get Naito versus Hiromu at Wrestle Kingdom. I think, and that's a drawing match. That's a match that draws. That's one that, Japanese fans have been, and North American fans have been looking forward to for a long time. They've been teasing it. The match has always felt like it never was the right time, or something happened. Someone was injured, like two ships passing in the night type of situation. And Naito's not getting any younger. He's not getting any healthier. If you want to, now would be the time to do it. Now would be the time to do it. So who would be Zack's challenger? Does he even main event Wrestle Kingdom? Does he main event Does he main event the crossover show the next Wrestle Dynasty the next night and fights Kazuchika Okada, for instance? I mean, that wouldn't be, that wouldn't be out of the wouldn't be that out of the blue. I don't think it's unthinkable. David Finlay is going to be defending the IWGP Global Heavyweight Championship against Hiroki Goto. I would not be surprised in the slightest if Goto ended up winning the global title here, because Goto has had a remarkably good 2024 in an environment where people had been writing him off, but he stepped up in the New Japan Cup this year when Finlay got injured, and ended up having, a kind of a dream run where people were completely behind Goto, who was doing this for his recently deceased father, and it was so easy to get behind, and it was a great movement. And then he had another great movement during the G1 where he suddenly started having these tremendous matches, and people were like, man, could it be that this might be the G and G1 might stand for Goto one more time? And he's just been doing phenomenal work, and I can absolutely see him maybe not winning the world title, but the global title, him as a nice secondary champion, and maybe finally put some stank on that title instead of, no disrespect to Dave Finlay, but to me, it just shows he's not a guy. He's not a top guy. He holds the title like it's, and it doesn't feel special. Nothing feels special on Dave Finlay. Goto, I feel, would crank it up and would deliver every single time because he's a very prideful man. He puts a lot of pride in what he does. So I am very pro Hiroki Goto, global heavyweight champion. That would be my pick. But of course, they could 100% just like say, the world needs a rebel and keep it on Finlay, right? We need a rebel, but maybe not Dave Finlay. Doki's defending the junior heavyweight championship against Sho. I like Dookie a lot. Sho can work if he wants to, but these days, it's all about the House of Torture. This would be a good match. I'm just worried about the House of Torture stuff. But I've also found that the House of Torture stuff has been not as overwhelming, I guess, as it once was. I feel like there's a good balance that they're finally starting to strike here. There might be something to this match. And I think Doki's a guy that I feel like he wants to have great defenses. I think, not unlike Goto, I feel like he puts a lot of pride into winning the championship and being the champion, and he wants to be perceived as a top guy in the junior division, right? He's not just the guy they belted up because Desperado wanted some time off to shoot a movie. I think that's not how he wants to come across. And so far, his run's been really good. So if he can have another great match with Sho, that's fine. He retains. I'd be happy with that. But I can also see Sho getting the title and holding on to it going into Wrestle Kingdom. That's also entirely a possibility. Hiroshi Tanahashi, Shota Umino, and El Phantasmo will be taking on Evil, Yujiro, and Yoshinobu Kanemaru in just a straight up 6-man tag match. The story here is that El Phantasmo is now a part of Hantai. He's on the good guy side now. He's surrounded by good people like Tana and Shota. So this is what they want to do here, up against the House of Torture. We'll see what kind of stories this sets up. I'm not holding my breath on this one. I'll tell you that much. Jeff Cobb, Yota Tsuji, and Ren Narita are having a 3-way for the World Television Championship. So they've gone right back to where we were after the original Jeff Cobb Yota Tsuji match that went to a draw. Ren Narita came out and beat them up. And now we revisit all of this, and Ren Narita came in and beat them up again. So we're right back to where we were. So this was clearly a plan, and they want to stick to this plan. And I think the plan is ultimately to belt up Yota Tsuji. I think that's what the plan is. Although they could 100% belt up Ren Narita too. You know, I think this would be entirely possible, but you know, are we throwing Ren Narita in here to to try and protect Jeff Cobb or Yota Tsuji? Is that the plan? Do we really need to be protecting Jeff Cobb? And if, like, let's say Yota Tsuji wins, what is better? That he pins Ren Narita or that he pins the champion, right? And Jeff Cobb, wouldn't it be better for him to just destroy the guy who he went to a time limit draw with last time? Wouldn't that be better for him as a champion? I'm trying to find a good reason for Narita to be in the match, booking wise. Clearly they want to protect someone. I think Narita's eating a pin, or like I said, Narita's winning the title, which is entirely possible. It's either one of the two. And look, 3 ways for titles, it's not my thing. Whatever. This one I'm excited for. Shingo Takagi versus Ryohei Oiwa for the Never Openweight Championship. Our boy Oiwa is winning this, right? Look at this guy. Comes in, first match back, and he runs in at the end during the post-match promos, and he gets right up into Shingo's face, is like, brother, I am challenging you for this title. And I'm super stoked for that. I am really excited for that. You know, according to the pacing here, it'd be 4th from the top. That's ridiculous. That's dumb. What are we doing here? This should be much higher up on the card. What are we doing? I'm very excited for that one. And you know what? Oi was winning. That's my call. Mikey Nichols and Shane Haste will be taking on Bad Luck Fale and Caveman Ugg coming up from Australia. I mean, I couldn't care less about Bad Luck Fale, but Caveman Ugg, let's go. Bullet Club War Dogs duo of Clark Connors and Drilla Maloney will once again defend the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team titles against Kevin Knight and Kushida, the Intergalactic Jet Setters. How many times have we seen this match this year? I mean, don't get me wrong. I like both of these teams. I think Kushida and Kevin Knight are good. I still don't understand why Kevin Knight hasn't been locked down into a singles thing with New Japan. But hey, you know, good. As far as openers, you know, lower card matches, you can't go wrong with this. And Hiromu Takahashi will be taking on Místico. Yep, that Místico is flying in to do this. I just hope it's better than the match they had in Arena, Mexico a couple of weeks ago, or a month or two ago. I don't understand what happened there. That was just like a complete dud. Like, it was not a complete dud, but it was very stale. Not what you would expect out of these two. We just might get it here. You know, let Místico do his thing. Místico must pose, and everything is fine from that point on. That's all. That's all you need to it. So yeah, I mean, Hiromu and Místico, I'm stoked about that. This is a fun card. Even the stuff that I'm a little down on, like, you know, 3 people for the world title, for the world TV title. Even despite that, I'm like, that still has the potential to be a really good match. Everything has great potential. And there's intriguing stuff. If you're not intrigued by Shingo Takagi and Oiwa going at it for the Never title, well, probably you don't watch New Japan, and that's fine. But if you do, and you're not excited about that match, I don't know what's wrong with you. There's something wrong with you. You should get checked out, is what I'm saying. So that's happening on the 14th, next Monday. And I will be reviewing that on the podcast next week as well. So prepare yourselves, brace yourselves. Lots of reviews on the podcast next week, which I will probably be recording offline, not on stream. So they will likely be available. I'll see how my schedule works up, because I have a bit of a goofy schedule this weekend as opposed to usual. So I'll see how it all lines up. But at least one of the reviews is going to be available for members only. That I know for sure. And the goofy schedule is due to the fact that it's Thanksgiving this weekend in the old Canada. And I've got my oldest son and his girlfriend coming down to visit. So there's things that are going to be pushed around a little bit. Won't be on my usual schedule for wrestling watching and whatnot. Going to be spending some time with the family. So I'll see how that plays out. I'll see how that works out. But either the AEW show or the New Japan show, either one of those two is going to be available beforehand for members of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show channel. So if you want to get in on that early, you want to hear my thoughts before anyone else does, join the channel on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes. And we'll get it. You'll get it. You'll get it. I promise. And that about wraps it up for another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed the all the stuff that appeared for you this week, as per the last few weeks, right? A combination of pre-recorded stuff and stream highlights. Hope you're enjoying it. If you can make it to the live streams, that'd be great. I'm settling into a rhythm where I stream like 3 times a week, and I think it's working out pretty good. Would love to have you there. It's a nice time. Of course, it happens on youtube.com/Mr. Warren Hayes. So, that's where you have to head. That's where it has to happen. So I'll be looking forward to seeing you there. If not, that's fine too. You still got all of this, all of this great Warren Hayes content that you can latch on to without an issue. I will be back with the Dynamite review later today. If you're listening to this on Wednesday, if you're listening to this on the outside on Wednesday morning, the Dynamite review is going to be back. Is going to be released a little later today, since last night was titled Tuesday. You get your Dynamite review today. Otherwise, I'll be back next week for the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. But in the meantime, there will be live streams and whatnot. So be sure to just find your sweet spot and come join me. I'd love to have you. In the meantime, I hope you all have a great rest of your week. Go watch some Randy Orton and get back to me. And I'll see you next time.